The Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. Those persons not entitled to the privileges of the floor will kindly retire to the gallery. The senators and all in attendance will please stand and be led in prayer by the Reverend Jerry Creedon, Holy Family Catholic Church, Dale City. Reverend Creedon, welcome.
Thank you. The Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us as pastors and as representatives. Our trade is in words. Words can be stones. Stones can injure and destroy. Stones are used to build walls. Walls can protect. They also divide. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Is it time to throw away stones or to use them to build a bridge of understanding? Lord, you are the Word. Send us a word that will heal. Bring us a word that will unite. Take away our hearts of stone. Give us hearts of flesh. Amen.
Amen. Amen. The clerk will call the roll. All those present will please vote aye. The clerk will close the roll.
You have a quorum, Mr. President. Senate Journal for Wednesday, February 8th, 2017.
The senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike, moves that the reading of the journal be waived. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 2.
Ayes 37, noes 2. The clerk will please report any communications from the House. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully move that we waive the reading of any communications received from the House of Delegates.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the communications from the House of Delegates be waived? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, nor are the senators ready to vote. Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 3.
Ayes 36, noes 3. The reading of the communication is waived. The clerk will please report any communications from the governor.
We do not have any, sir.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The time has come to recognize visitors to the gallery and take up other matters for the morning hour. And to those of you that are visiting in the gallery, we certainly appreciate your patience. This morning, today is when we discussed the budget. So there were some last-minute things that we were taking care of. So we appreciate your patience, and I hope you enjoy your visit with us today. The senator from Northern Chesapeake, Senator Spruill. Your light's on, Senator? Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining us in the gallery today, we have members of the National Association of Social Workers, the Virginia chapter. More than 300 members and students of the association are joining us and have been here all day. Today, Americans enjoy privileges because early social workers such as Jane Addams saw miseries and injustice and took action, inspiring others along the way. Social workers advocate for the civil rights of all people, regardless of gender, race, faith, sexual orientation, class, or ability. Through the advancement of dignity and justice, social workers support the mental, physical, and spiritual health and rights of all individuals and communities in countless ways. You can find social workers practicing in a variety of arenas, such as counseling, case management, fundraising, research, program development, community organization, policy and planning, and they make terrific legislative aids. I ask that you join me in welcoming the members of the National Association of Social Workers that are joining us today.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the National Association of Social Workers please rise? welcome to our gallery of the Senate, and thank you all so much for being here today, and also thanks for all the great work that you do to help those in need across the Commonwealth. We certainly appreciate that. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the National Association of Social Workers the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Prince William County, Senator McPike.
Mr. President, I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
This morning, our opening prayer was provided to us by Father Jerry Creedon of Holy Family Catholic Church. Happens to be the parish where I was baptized a couple of days ago. And, Father Creedon has been a servant in Northern Virginia for nearly 50 years as a Catholic priest, serving in for the Good Shepherd Parish, St. Charles Parish, Holy Family. He is also the founding pastor of the mission in Dominican Republic, a founder of Catholics for Housing, which I've had the pleasure to be a partner with in working for affordable and workforce housing throughout Virginia, working in the community as the representative on the board of the Virginia Interfaith Center of Public Policy, and so many other things. Father Creedon is truly an individual that helps us all understand how to live the faith, and he is one who does it himself. So, Mr. President, I'd ask you to give the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Father Creedon please rise? And your guest as well, please. Thank you so much, Father, for being with us this afternoon. And what a wonderful message you gave to get us off on a good foot today. And I know you've been here numerous times, and we certainly appreciate all of your visits, and we hope to see you many more times in the future. So thank you so much for being with us. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering the Reverend Jerry Creedon the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Petersburg, Senator Dance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you. Today in the gallery, we have a group of students visiting from the Virginia State University School of Social Work. They are all juniors. They are here today as part of their annual lobby day with the National Association of Social Workers. The mission of the Department of Social Work is to prepare traditional and non-traditional students for professional entry-level generalist social work practice who are committed to social, economic, and environmental justice throughout the surrounding urban, suburban, rural, and military-based communities in Central and Southern Virginia. As entry-level practitioners, students are capable of delivering social services in a manner that is consistent with the values, social justice, the dignity and worth of the person, the importance of human relationships, integrity, competence, human rights, and scientific inquiry, and ethics of the social work profession. Ultimately, students recognize their responsibility to continue their professional growth and development in research and in the incorporation of the latest technologies in their practice. So, Mr. President, on behalf of the senator from Chesterfield County, Senator Chase, the senior senator from Richmond City, Senator Sturdivant, and I, we ask that you would give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from Virginia State University please rise? I know you're up there. You all stand up. Virginia. Oh, my goodness. Senator, I think they maybe are watching from another viewing area, but we certainly are glad they're here today. And to members of the Virginia State University, congratulations to you. Please join me, Senators, in offering members from the Virginia State University the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
We have a very special group with us today, and that's Alexandria's Parent Leadership Training Institute, accompanied by Adrienne Fikes, their executive director. The Parent Leadership Training Institute works to help parents become strong leaders for children and families and expand the capacity of parents as change agents. They facilitate systems for change for parental involvement with increased utilization of parents in both policy and process decisions. And ultimately, they improve child outcomes through parent involvement. In Alexandria, we've had one member run and become a member of the Alexandria School Board, and they become real leaders in our community. So I hope you will give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Parent Leadership Training Institute please rise? Well, welcome this afternoon, and again, we appreciate your patience, and thanks for making the trip down from Northern Virginia. Hope you have a great afternoon in Mr. Jefferson's capital. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Parent Leadership Training Institute the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. With us in the gallery today are members of the 200-plus Men Incorporated of Hampton Roads. The Hampton Roads Committee has brought young men and their chaperones from various high schools to examine the legislative process of the General Assembly. The areas of interest are education bills, specifically driver's education, and bills that involve interaction with police officers. During their visit, they will meet with their legislative representatives, attend a presentation at VCU, and tour our state capitol. I applaud them today as they mark their 17th annual caravan trip to Richmond. Please extend a warm welcome to them from the Senate of Virginia.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Hampton Roads Committee of 200-plus men please rise? Welcome to our gallery this afternoon, and thank you for all that you do across the Commonwealth. I'm very familiar with your work, and we certainly appreciate your advocacy and hope you have a wonderful visit this afternoon in Richmond. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Hampton Roads Committee of 200-plus men the warm welcome of the Senate. The junior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator DeSteffe.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
In the gallery today are students from James Madison University. Joining us are McKenna Hundley from Virginia Beach and Chase Action. We're adopting her from Virginia Beach, but she's really from that other side, Northern Virginia. Both are juniors studying social work at JMU. I hope we give them the warm welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Chase and McKenna please rise if you're with us this afternoon? Well, welcome to the gallery, and what a great educational opportunity you have at James Madison University. We had your football team here yesterday, the Mighty Dukes, and we were very proud of all the great games that they won this season that they had this year. So excuse the chatter that we have here. But we hope you have an enjoyable day and best of luck in your educational endeavors. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Chase Action and McKenna Hundley the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Henrico, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for two introductions.
The senator has the floor.
So this morning we have in our gallery visitors and young ladies from St. Gertrude High School here in Richmond. They are with us at the General Assembly for Catholic Advocacy Day, and we're thrilled to have them here. There's one special attendee in the group who happens to be the younger sister of my legislative assistant, Mallory. Please join me in wishing Eleanor McCune a happy 18th birthday.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from St. Gertrude High School and Eleanor please rise? All right, raise your hand, birthday girl. All right. Well, thank you all for being here, and what a great educational opportunity you all have as well. We thank you for visiting with us today in Mr. Jefferson's capital, and we certainly wish you a happy 18th birthday and many more to come. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from St. Gertrude's High School the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Henrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we also have visiting with us and here at the Capitol, and I hope visited you in some of your offices, parents, students, teachers, and administrators from the Virginia Virtual Academy. The Virtual Academy is a full-time K-8 school here in the Commonwealth with approximately 1,500 students enrolled in the school. You might be interested to know that at least one Virginia Virtual Academy student resides in 122 of our 132 school divisions. Virtual education is important, as we've talked about in this body, because it really gives students an opportunity to thrive in an environment that works for them. I'd also like to share with you that all 100% of eligible virtual Virginia Academy students took the SOL test this year, and results, they met or exceeded the state average in 10 of the 13 testing areas. So I would like the Senate to welcome Virtual Virginia Academy and all of the parents, teachers, and support staff that are here with them.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Virginia Virtual Academy please rise? Wow, what a great group. We can recognize you in your yellow scarves. They look very good today. So thank you all for being with us today. And we are blessed in Virginia to have so many educational opportunities, and we certainly hope that you all are getting the most out of your opportunity. And best of luck to you in your educational endeavors. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Virginia Virtual Academy the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Accomack County, Senator Lewis.
Rise for two introductions, Mr. President.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, you may not have a green sheet on this, but visiting with us today in the gallery are some students from Matthews County. Karen Lloyd is their teacher, and she's here with her honors business class from Matthews High School. They've been visiting the Capitol both today and yesterday, meeting with legislators, and actually had a meeting with Governor McAuliffe, and have been watching the procedures in both chambers. So I hope we can give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
I will. Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Matthews Blue Devils please rise? Welcome. And I enjoyed visiting with you all yesterday, and hope you all have had a wonderful stay here in Richmond and learned a lot about how policy is made, and have been able to take in all the wonderful history in our capital city. And I know Senator Lewis is doing a wonderful job representing you, and that's the area that I used to represent. And I certainly enjoyed all my visits to Matthews and interacting with the wonderful people there. So please give everybody our regards when you go back to Matthews. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from Matthews High School the warm welcome of the Senate. The senator from Accomack County, Senator Lewis.
Mr. President, also visiting with us today is a group of citizen advocates from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation led by Ann Terzick. They've been meeting with us in our offices to advance the cause of a cleaner and healthier bay. So I hope we give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would members from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation please rise? Well, welcome. And thanks for all the great work that you do. And as you know, my wife Pam works side by side in Lynn Haven River now. And just what a great working relationship you all have. And the Brock Environmental Center, for all of you in here, if you haven't had a chance to tour that in Virginia Beach, it's just a wonderful place and a great educational tool for our youngsters to encourage them to be good stewards of our environment. So thanks for all the work that you all are doing to keep our Chesapeake Bay healthy and vibrant. It's a large part of our economy, as you all know. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation the warm welcome of the Senate. The senior senator from Bath County, Senator Deeds.
Mr. President, I rise for an introduction.
The senator has the floor.
There are 12 students, and I think some of them are down the hall, from Mr. Tanner's government class, and they're students with their advisor. Anna Minutella is up there, too. She may be in the house. They're from the Renaissance School in Charlottesville. They're participating in the Model United Nations and Model General Assembly teams in Charlottesville and in Norfolk. Renaissance School is a college preparatory high school for high-ability students in the arts, sciences, and humanities. The school focuses on interdisciplinary learning through a balanced program equally strong in the arts and academics. Mr. President, I'd appreciate it if you'd give them the warm greetings to the Senate.
Well, thank you, Senator. Would members from Renaissance School in Charlottesville please rise? Well, welcome to the gallery, and I enjoyed visiting with you all earlier today, and you all have great futures ahead of you, and you're at a great school there at Renaissance, so take advantage of your educational opportunity, and best of luck to you. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from Renaissance School in Charlottesville the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure to direct your attention in the gallery to Natalie Youngblood, who is here. She has been working in our office, and she's here in the Capitol today. Natalie is a freshman at James Wood High School in Winchester. She is an honor roll student, Mr. President, and she is also president of her class. Currently, she has been working with a Moose Youth Awareness Program where she delivers anti-bullying talks to local elementary schools. She is an extraordinary young person, and I would ask that you please extend to Natalie Youngblood, the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Miss Natalie Youngblood please rise? Natalie, congratulations on all your accomplishments at such a young age, and thanks for being here today. And I hope you're enjoying your experience and learning about how policy is made. And please tell everybody we said hello back in. It's Winchester, correct? Yes. So thanks for being here. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Miss Natalie Youngblood the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for purposes of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the gallery, we have Ted Gold and Margaret Gearing. Ted and Margaret are the grandparents of Senna Keesing, one of our Senate pages. And Ted Gold and Margaret Gearing are from McLean, and they're down here to observe the General Assembly working. So please give the grandparents of Senna Keesing a nice warm welcome.
Well, thank you, Senator. Are Ted Gold and Margaret Gearing with us? If you would please rise. Please rise. Thank you all so much for being with us, and you all have been very attentive and patient, and Senna's doing a great job, as is our entire PAGE class. We're very proud of the PAGE program here, and the youngsters just have a wonderful experience and learn so much and make such great friends. And so we're very thankful that we have such a program, and thanks for being here to see us in action today. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mr. Ted Gold and Miss Margaret Gearing the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purpose of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
I don't know if they all have convened in the gallery, but today we have joining us to see how legislation is created in the Virginia General Assembly a group of students from Norfolk State University. They are called the Empowered Group, and they are accompanied by their coach, Mr. Worley. I would appreciate it if you would extend to them the very warm welcome of the Senate. Some of them may be downstairs in committee room, but I hope some of them have made it to the gallery.
Thank you, Senator. Are there members from the Empowered Group from Norfolk State University with us in the gallery? Oh, great. Thank you all for being here. And as the good senator from Portsmouth said, it's a great day to be here and watch how policy and laws are made in your capital. So hope you have a great afternoon in Mr. Jefferson's capital. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from Norfolk State University the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Russell County, Senator Chafin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an announcement and an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
I hope that each of you today had time to stop by and pick up your beef sandwich, steak sandwich, and dairy products, delicious dairy products that were out in the out beside the Capitol earlier today, and probably still there if you haven't gotten them, that were provided to us by the Virginia Cattlemen's Association and the Virginia Beef Industry Council. You probably don't know this, but some of my most splendid and peaceful moments are spent walking around, talking to and working with my cattle when I'm out on my farm, and so it does my heart good to see so many cattlemen and dairymen here in the Capitol here to greet us and to actually feed us some nourishing food. Over $1 billion in economic return, at over $1 billion in economic return to farmers annually, and a multi-billion-dollar impact for the Commonwealth, the Virginia cattle and dairy industries are significant contributors to both the Virginia agriculture and general economies. In fact, production of cattle is Virginia's largest use of private land in agriculture, and the production of beef and milk, as well as milk products in Virginia, contribute to both a safe, secure, and wholesome food supply. I hope that you've enjoyed that, and I don't know if any of the cattlemen are actually present here today in our gallery, Mr. President, but I would ask that we offer them our thanks
Absolutely.
And the warm welcome of the Senate.
Senator, when you talk to the cattle, do they talk back to you?
Mr. President, they communicate in a most beautiful way with me. They really do, and they're more mindful of my intentions than some members of this body.
It's always good to have the last word. Would members from the Cattlemen's Association, if you're in the gallery with us, please rise? Senator, they're probably out and probably still preparing and providing food for everybody, but if they are watching, we look forward to this each year, and we certainly appreciate all that you do for the economy of Virginia and also for the nourishment that you provided to our senators and staff today. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Cattlemen's Association the thanks and the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Grayson County, Senator Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction.
Senator has the floor.
Visiting us today in the gallery is my seatmate's lovely wife, Laura Stanley. Fortunately, we have the ability to put up with my seatmate for 60 days one year and 45 the next. And if we could give her a resolution today for putting up with him for the other 300 days of the year, over 300 days, I think it would be appropriate. But she is visiting us today, and though he's not feeling his best today, she's going to take good care of him. The good doctor from Henrico and I have already checked to see if he had a fever, just to make sure he could go home if he did. But he's doing better, and we're glad that she's here to watch over him today. So if you give her a warm welcome of the Senate,
I will.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Laura, would you please rise? Welcome again. It's always good to see you. And you know, we had a discussion the other day when you hear about his directional issues. Today it's about timeliness. And as you know, he wandered in 15 minutes after we were supposed to go. And so if if there's anything you could do, get him a new watch or an alarm or do something. But it's always a pleasure to see you. And I know there are a lot of spouses were in Richmond today, so we hope you have a wonderful visit today and safe travels to you. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Ms. Laura Stanley the warm welcome of the Senate. The senior senator from Richmond City, Senator Sturdivant.
Mr. President, I rise for two introductions.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, joining us in the gallery today is Isabel Longstaff, a senior and stellar student at James River High School in Midlothian and Chesterfield. Isabel is currently completing an internship with Maria Jankowski at the Virginia Indigent Defense Commission. For Isabel's senior capstone project, she organized and coordinated a fundraiser for Camp Comfort Zone, a resource for children to help them cope with grief and trauma. Please join me in recognizing Isabel, and please extend to her the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Would Miss Isabel Longstaff please rise? Isabel, thank you for being with us today. And what a great work you did with your fundraiser for children. We certainly appreciate that, and you have so much to be proud of. Hope you're having a wonderful experience here. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Miss Isabel Longstaff the warm welcome of the Senate. The senior senator.
Mr. President, also with us in the gallery today are a group of students from Orchard House School. Orchard House is located in the historic Fan District in the city of Richmond and is a school for outstanding female students from grades 5 through 8. Students focus on a core curriculum that promotes leadership building through connections, openness, resilience, and engagement. With the group today is Danielle Jankowski, who got a firsthand look at the election process during 2 state Senate campaigns in 2015, Senator Dunavant's and my own. And also with the group is Morgan Loria, who is serving as Delegate Peter Farrell's page this year. Please join me in offering the students of Orchard House the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. So if members of Orchard House School, if you're with us, please rise. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon, and what a great educational opportunity you all have right down the street in the Fan, a beautiful area of Richmond. So we appreciate you visiting with us today. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the Orchard House School the warm welcome of the Senate. The Senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise for an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, members of the body, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce somebody who's been around my office this whole session, and some folks are wondering why. Because Miss Virginia Jordan of Orange County is a graduate of UVA, a distinguished attorney in her own right, countless committees and everything else, but she took this session, Mr. President, to really come down and understand what it is that I do each and every day to serve our constituency, and she really wanted to understand that, how we make those laws, but more importantly, how do we help the constituents in Orange County, where I currently represent. But I think she epitomizes that age is just not a loss of youth, Mr. President, but a new stage of opportunity and strength. She's embraced that. She's hung with all the young people in the GAB, those late hours, and she's just been an immeasurable help to me this session. So if you would give her the warm welcome of the Senate to Miss Virginia Jordan, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Would Miss Virginia Jordan please rise? Virginia, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for helping the good senator from Spotsylvania, and hope you've had a great experience. I know he's relied heavily on your help, and we couldn't do what we do without folks that come and help us like you, so thanks for all your hard work. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Miss Virginia Jordan the warm welcome of the Senate. The senior senator from Fairfax County, Senator Saslaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for an introduction. We're joined here in the gallery today by former member State Senator Emily Miller from Fairfax County. Emily represented the 34th Senate District, and which is now represented by State Senator Peterson. And she's been involved in a lot of activities in Fairfax, and I would ask that you please extend a warm welcome of the Senator to a former member.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Miller, thank you for being with us. Please rise. Welcome to the gallery, and welcome back. I travel around the Commonwealth a lot, and I see you in a lot of different places, so thank you so much for what you continue to do for our community and for our Commonwealth. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please welcome and join me in thanking the former Senator Emily Miller. Welcome her to the Gallery of Virginia. Thank you. The Senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I stand for the purpose of an introduction.
The Senator has the floor.
Mr. President, we have in the gallery today a group of leaders that has been put together by Commissioner Holcomb. It's the Division of Motor Vehicles Executive Leadership Program. They have been here at the Capitol and hearing from many individuals. They go back and help and lead in that important division. I would hope that you would give them the warm welcome of the Senate.
Thank you, Senators. Will members of the DMV Executive Leadership Program please rise? Welcome to the gallery. Now, if Paige Brothers is there, if you could raise your hand, I want to give you special shout out. Clark Mercer asked me to do that for you. So it's what happens when my chief of staff knows you. So, but thanks, as the good senator from Bedford said, thanks for all that you all do across the Commonwealth for the DMV, and we certainly appreciate your efforts, and thanks for visiting with us today. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering members from the DMV Executive Leadership Program the warm welcome of the Senate. Looks like we have the senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I rise for the purposes of an introduction.
The senator has the floor, and I hope you're feeling better, Senator.
Thank you, Doctor. I may need your advice and good counsel here in a little bit.
I am always available, depending on what type of insurance you have.
Absolutely. I believe, Mr. President, I have the same type of insurance that you have, so I think we're good.
All right.
Mr. President and members of the Senate, in the gallery today is somebody sitting next to my beautiful wife who's very special to me. Actually, I used to make a joke that it was my longest non-familial female relationship I'd ever had with one single woman, and this is Deborah Duke Daly. In 1996, as a young attorney, I was hired by a very large firm in Arlington, Virginia, and got to know a paralegal who didn't work for me necessarily, but actually just kept looking at me as I hung around her desk and kept asking her questions about what she did. She was our personal injury paralegal, and she had all these great and beautiful files. And she taught me more about law in those 2 years at that big firm than I ever learned probably at law school in the 3 years that I spent there. And in 1998, big guy over here got the wise idea that he would start his own firm with his mom. My mom became a lawyer at age 59 after my dad passed away. I had encouraged her to go to law school and made a promise that I would leave wherever I was and start a law firm. Well, that was, that's a hope and a prayer. But yet Deborah Daly trusted in me to leave with me from that big firm of security and take a chance on what that future may hold. And ever since, she has worked with me, and not just worked with me and taught me so many things, and saved my behind more times than I can count. I have taken credit for stuff that she has done. I have blamed her for things I have done. But I can tell you there is nobody more loyal, more loving, more caring, more dedicated to her job, and someone that really, when you get to know somebody, now it's 21 years working with me. So either she's crazy, or she's just a very special person who has a lot of sympathy for her boss. In the past 5 years, she has been my legislative aide at home, and very blessed. She takes care of all of her constituents there at the same time, and has just been an incredible part of my life. And I could not be here without her and others, but she's certainly family to me. So I'm so proud to finally have her up here. She knows what I'm like when I come home after these sessions. She's heard about it, but she's never seen it. So this is her first time at in Richmond at our Capitol. So if you would extend to her the warm welcome of the Senate, I'd really, really appreciate it.
Thank you,
sir.
Senator. Would Ms. Debbie Daly please rise? Ms. Daly, welcome. I'm glad you're joining us today, and what a wonderful relationship you all have. And I tell the story. I had a nurse that has worked with me for 15 years, and I've told her when she leaves, I leave. So we couldn't do what we do without special people like you. So we appreciate that relationship, and thanks for all that you've done for Senator Stanley. I'm sure he's done much for you as well. So we wish you many years of contentment and happiness as you all move forward. I'd ask the members of the Senate to please join me in offering Mrs. Debbie Daly the warm welcome of the Senate. Other business for the morning hour. Seeing none, the clerk will please call the calendar.
Senate calendar for Thursday, February 9, 2017. Uncontested calendar, House bills on third reading.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Good evening, Mr. President. I would respectfully move that all the House bills on the uncontested calendar on the third reading including all House bills on pages 1 through 10, including House Bill 1422 through House Bill 2377, be placed on their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments. If any senator desires to remove a House bill from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of that bill.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House bills on the uncontested calendar, third readings, pages 1 through 10, House Bill 1422 through House Bill 2377, be placed upon their final passage in the block after the adoption of any amendments thereto, with the understanding that any senator desiring a bill removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the bill. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The bills are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the number of the bills.
House Bill 1422, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1433, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1455, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1476, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Mr. President. Senior Senator from Loudon.
Could that come out of the block?
Senator, which number was that?
1476.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, House Bill 1476 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1478, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1505, reported from the Committee on Education and reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1529, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1565, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Loudon.
Mr. President, could House Bill 1565 come out of the block?
Without objection, House Bill 1565 will come out of the block.
House Bill 1591, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1623, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with the substitute.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move the committee substitute.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
House Bill 1626, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1629, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1668, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1787, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1810, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1884, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1889, reported from the Committee on Finance with amendment.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the committee amendment be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 1913, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 1940, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 1979, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with amendment.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendment.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
House Bill 2151, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology. House Bill 2169, reported from the Committee on Finance. House Bill 2301, reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology with amendments.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Mr. President, I move the committee amendments.
The question is, shall the committee amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee amendments are agreed to.
House Bill 2377, reported from the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The question is, shall the House bills pass in block? That is, all bills except for House Bill 1476 and House Bill 1565. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bills in the block pass. Returning to page 2, House Bill 1476. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House Bill 1476 pass. I'd like to speak to that.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1476 prohibits any locality from requiring any taxpayer who is a lessor of real property from having to produce the lease for purpose of determining whether the property is eligible for special assessment for land preservation. I move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1476 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 37, noes 3.
Ayes 37, noes 3. The bill passes. Moving forward to page 4, House Bill 1565. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I would ask that that bill go by temporarily.
Without objection, House Bill 1565 will go by temporarily.
Regular calendar House bills on third reading. House Bill 1454, a bill relating to James River designation as component of Virginia Scenic River Systems. Reported from the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources with a substitute.
The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the substitute be adopted.
The question is, shall the substitute be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to. The senator from Stafford.
And, Mr. President, I'd move the bill pass. And speaking to that,
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this just adds certain designated portions of the James River to the Scenic River designation.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1454 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 7.
Ayes 33, noes 7. The bill passes.
House Bill 1589, a bill relating to order of publication, use of electronic medium. The committee amendment was adopted by the Senate.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I respectfully ask the bill pass by for the day.
Without objection, House Bill 1589 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1415, a bill relating to local transient occupancy tax, Goochland County, Powhatan County, and Warren County. Reported from the Committee on Finance.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill pass. I'd like to speak to that.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1465, whatever the number is, 1415, is a transient occupancy tax which adds Goochland County, Powhatan County, and Warren counties as listed in the bill as those localities that are authorized to impose an additional transient occupancy tax up to 5%, with the amount above 2% being allocated to promotion of tourism. I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1415 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 30, noes 9.
Ayes 30, noes 9. The bill passes.
House Bill 1681, a bill relating to transient occupancy tax, state parks. Reported from the Committee on Finance with amendment.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I move that the committee amendments be agreed to.
The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The senator from Augusta.
Mr. President, I move the bill pass and speak to that.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, this bill would allow localities, it would not require localities, but it would allow localities to impose a transient occupancy tax on lodging in Virginia state parks lodging. So that would mean that if you stay in a cabin at First Landing or any other lodging places throughout the Commonwealth and state parks, that the locality could impose a lodging tax. I move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Gentleman, yield for a question.
Would the senator from Augusta yield?
Be pleased to yield.
He yields, Senator.
I note that a number of state parks, for example, permit camping where you stay in a tent. Would that also be subject to a transient occupancy tax?
The senator from Augusta.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, it's my understanding, and I mean, look at it again, but it would not include pitching your tent. It would include yurts. It would include, you heard of yurts? Yurts. And it would include cabins, lodges, those things of that nature.
The senator from Peter, excuse me.
Further question,
Senator,
Mr.
would the
President.
senator
Fairfax
yield
City.
for an additional question? He yields, Senator.
I would yield.
I would ask the gentleman, the state park currently, is it under the jurisdiction of the, is it under the jurisdiction of the locality? For example, do the police and fire and rescue serve those state parks?
The senator from Augusta.
Mr. President, I would say that while there may be, instances where there is some shared policing of state parks, that we as a Commonwealth maintain our own law enforcement within the boundaries of the state park.
The senator from Fairfax City.
Well, that would be my next leading question is, don't we pay for the policing of the state parks?
The senator from Augusta.
Mr. President, I would say to the gentleman from Fairfax City that, yes, we, the taxpayers of the Commonwealth, pay for the policing of the state parks.
Final further question,
Would
Mr.
the senator
Chair.
yield for an additional question?
Yes, I would be pleased to yield.
Senator.
And the cost of that policing, aren't we able to factor that into the cabin rentals and everything else that we do right now when we charge the consumer?
The senator from Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, Mr. President, I would say that is factored in, although I would use this moment to basically point out the fact that we simply support our state park system, which is routinely ranked as the #1 state park system in the nation. The concern here is what is viewed as unfair competition from our state parks, which we have expanded, which used to not have such nice lodging facilities that some view as competing directly with private enterprise.
The senator from Fairfax City.
No further questions.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Accomack County, Senator Lewis.
Mr. President, let me preface this by saying this is not my bill. However, I think the senator from Augusta made the point that this is aimed at trying to put our campgrounds, our state-run parks, on an equal footing with the private enterprise. Specifically, I think what brought this to Delegate Bloxham's attention is there are 3 campgrounds in Northampton County, which is not a well-off county, and that there are 2 campgrounds that are private entities that are trying to compete with a very popular, very well-attended state parks, Kiptopeke State Park there, which has yurts and cabins and other camping facilities there. And this is an attempt to put everybody on an equal footing, that's all. So I hope the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I don't usually associate with kind of the anti-tax side, but, a tax has to actually be related to a benefit. And the reason why we have transient occupancy tax is because when people come and visit a jurisdiction, there needs to be extra policing and fire and rescue. Here we have a state park system, and when you rent a cabin at a state park, and I do it every summer, that cost is factored in. And so I understand we're trying to create more revenue for local governments, and that's great, but this isn't going to help state parks. This money is going to a local government, but it's for a state park, not a local park. So I don't know if this bill is so well thought out. I'm voting against it.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to direct the body's attention, speaking to the bill.
Senator has the floor.
This is probably going to surprise you. I oppose this bill. But direct your attention to 2007 House Bill 1714, which was introduced by then delegate from Accomack, putting this tax on Northampton County. So what we're essentially hearing today is because we started taxing the private sector on this several years ago, and then we also started doing things at the state parks that our long-lost friend Tom Garrett spoke so strongly against, we now need to raise a tax on folks going to the camps there as well. And, we hear all the time about why these taxes are so great, but now we're saying maybe they're not so helpful to the private sector in competing. We're told that these taxes are welcomed by the private sector because they're going to promote the area. But now we're being told, well, it appears that it actually puts the private sector at a disadvantage. So I'm not sure which way it is. I would have voted against the tax in 2007, and I'm voting against this one today. Also, I'd invite the senator from Fairfax City. I love these speeches. You always come over here and take my seat if you want.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak against the measure.
The senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I'm always against taxes. This is no different. But this is a little bit unique because we're always wanting ordinary folks to go out to our state parks. We want people from the inner cities to go out there. We want our elderly people to go out. We want everybody to be able to go out there and to do it at the lowest possible cost. And part of the reason that we've got state parks is because, we keep them basically free for people, or at least as close as we can. And this seems to just sort of fly in the face of the whole theory behind having state parks in the first place. My friend, the senator here, is giving me the eye over here, but I think he sees a little bit of what I'm saying. We're trying to keep these things cheap for people, and I just think we ought to be consistent with that theory that we have of our state parks. Let's keep them cheap so that people who don't have a lot of money can go out and they can have recreation. They can take the Boy Scouts and they can take the Girl Scouts and take school groups and things like that without having to pay a transient occupancy tax. So I would ask you to oppose the bill.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to close out, Mr. President, with a couple quick remarks, and certainly I agree with the senior senator from Loudoun in terms of the imposition of taxes, but there are 2 points on this one. One, there's no state tax dollars involved here. We're talking about a local option tax that we would extend to a locality for transient occupancy. So, that, and the other issue is an issue of fairness, and that will probably split my caucus a bit here because we have been concerned in the past. We all want to promote the use of our state parks and private parks and facilities as well. This is an attempt to basically level the playing field so that we don't give our state parks, as great as they are, a competitive advantage against private enterprise. So that would be the only speaking point that I could add, Mr. President. So I would move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the measure.
The senator has the floor.
Just to only add one thing, because this has been well debated, but it is a local option to allow the localities to collect this. The problem with it is, it's not just for Northampton County, it goes all across the state, and it's actually going to cost the state parks out of their budget $75,000, $80,000 a year because they've got to hire somebody now to take this transient occupancy tax and then remit it back to the localities. So while the state parks are paying for all the infrastructure and everything, and we try to continue to keep the cost cheap at the state parks, we now will be dipping into that budget upwards of $100,000 a year to pay someone to take that tax and remit it back to the localities. And I personally oppose it, and I hope you all will too.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President.
The senator from Accomack County, Senator Lewis.
Through the magic of texting, can that bill go by for the day?
Without objection, House Bill 1681 will go by for the day.
House Bill 1927, a bill relating to official emblems and designations, Song of the Mountains State Television Series. Reported from the Committee on General Laws and Technology.
The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the bill pass, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
This is the companion bill to the gentleman from Grayson County's Senate Bill 1332, which designates Song of the Mountains as the state television series.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Chesapeake, Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Being one of the semi-professional musicians in the body, I was wondering if the Senator Ruff could sing us a few bars of Song in the Mountains. The senator from Grayson refused to do so.
Mr. President, I would be delighted to when you want to clear the House.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1927 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 32, noes 7.
Ayes 32, noes 7. The bill passes.
Mr. President.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
If we could return to page 4, House Bill 1565.
Yes.
I'd be prepared to address that one.
Thank you, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I first move that House Bill 1565 pass. And speaking to that,
Senator has the floor.
Thank you. House Bill 1565 was developed. There are a group of delegates have been working on reduced regulation and incentives for business. This one would authorize localities to create green development zones that provide certain tax incentives and regulatory flexibility for up to 10 years to a business operating in an energy-efficient building or to a business that produces products used to reduce negative impact on the environment, thus a green technology or development zone. So I move the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1565 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 33, noes 6.
Ayes 33, noes 6. The bill passes.
Uncontested calendar, House bills on second reading.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now respectfully move that all of the House bills on the second reading on the uncontested calendar, which I think would include all bills on 12 through 14, including House Bill 1518 through House Bill 2198, that the rules of the Senate be suspended and the second constitutional reading of the title be dispensed with.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the second reading of the titles of House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars, pages 12 through 14, House Bill 1518 through House Bill 2198, be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The reading of the titles is dispensed with. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now ask that the bills be passed by for the day.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the House bills on the uncontested and regular calendars now on third reading go by for the day? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills will go by for the day.
Uncontested calendar, Senate bill on second reading. Senate Bill 900.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, along with the senator from Augusta, I'd ask that that bill be passed by temporarily.
Without objection, Senate Bill 900 will go by temporarily.
Memorial resolutions.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would now move that all of the memorial resolutions on pages 15 through 17, including House Joint Resolution 838 through Senate Resolution 137, be agreed to in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolution. Any senator who desires to remove a memorial resolution from the block should please do so after the clerk has read the title of that resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the memorial resolutions on pages 15 through 17, H.R. 838 through S.R. 137, be considered in the block in the usual manner, waiving the reading of the resolutions thereof, with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the title of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the titles of the memorial resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 838, celebrating the life of Stephen Charles Bashore. House Joint Resolution 839, celebrating the life of Gus George Pappas. House Joint Resolution 843, celebrating the life of Roberta Lee Tyner Naranjo. House Joint Resolution 845, celebrating the life of David A. Keckley.
Mr. President, would you mind pulling House Joint Resolution 845 out of the block for me, please?
Without objection, H.R. 845 will come out of the block.
House Joint Resolution 847, celebrating the life of Madison Montgomery Shinaberry. House Joint Resolution 852, celebrating the life of Crosby Carroll Forrest. House Joint Resolution 855, celebrating the life of James A. Lewis, Jr. House Joint Resolution 856, celebrating the life of the Honorable Robert Mark Jacoby. House Joint Resolution 858, celebrating the life of Joel Willis Richard. Senate Joint Resolution 347, celebrating the life of Oliver Rodney Hunt Singleton. Senate Joint Resolution 360, celebrating the life of the Honorable Robert Mark Jacoby. Senate Joint Resolution 366, celebrating the life of Fannie Wilkinson Fitzgerald. Senate Joint Resolution 369, celebrating the life of Trooper Chad Philip Dermeyer. Senate Joint Resolution 376, celebrating the life of Michael Moore Skinner. Senate Resolution 124, celebrating the life of David A. Keckley. Senate Resolution 134, celebrating the life of Madison Montgomery Shinaberry. Senate Resolution 136, celebrating the life of Wayne F. Giesert. Senate Resolution 137, celebrating the life of Carmelita Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With the exception of H.R. 845, the resolutions will be agreed to in the usual manner. All those in favor of agreeing to the memorial resolutions will please rise. The resolutions are agreed to.
Commending resolutions.
Madam Clerk, Senator, are you prepared to? Okay, if we return to page 15, House Joint Resolution 845, the Senator from Henrico.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I wanted to take just a minute of this body's time to talk a little bit about Mr. David Keckley, who served 35 years as a Board of Supervisor for us in Henrico. Excuse me. After graduating with an engineering degree from Michigan State, he served in Korea with the U.S. Army. In the 1960s, he settled into Henrico, where he began his 30-year career with Reynolds Metal Company. In 1980, Dave was first elected to the Henrico Board of Supervisors as our representative for the 3 CHOP district. He retired in 2015 as the longest-serving member of the board to date. During his time as 3 CHOP supervisor, using his engineering background, he oversaw incredible growth and development and helped shape the county as we know it today. He's predeceased by his wife, Marilyn, and will be greatly missed by his daughters, Karen and Kathy, and their families, as well as his longtime companion, Erna. I ask you to join me today in remembering David Keckley, a man who dedicated his entire life to public service in Henrico and forever a pillar of our community.
Thank you, Senator. The resolution will be agreed to in the usual manner. All those in favor will please rise. The resolution is agreed to. The Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully remove that all of the commending resolutions on pages 17 through 22 of the calendar, including House Joint Resolution 751 through Senate Resolution 138, be agreed to in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolution. Any senator who desires to remove a resolution from the block should please do so after the clerk has read the number of that resolution.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the commending resolutions on pages 17 through 22, HJR 751 through SR 138, be considered in the block by voice vote, waiving the reading of the resolutions with the understanding that any senator desiring a resolution removed from the block will do so after the clerk has read the number of the resolution. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. The resolutions are before us in the block. The clerk will please read the numbers of the resolutions.
House Joint Resolutions 751, 752, 815, 816.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President. May HJR 751 and 752 go by for the day, please.
Without objection, H.R. 751 and 752 will go by for the day.
817, 830, 831, 832, 833, 834, 835, 836, 837, 840, 841, 842, 844, 846, 848, 849, 850.
Mr. President.
The junior senator from Richmond City, Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could HJR 850 and HJR 853 on page 20 go by for the day, please?
Without objection, H.R. 850 and 853 will go by for the day.
$854, $859, three Senate Joint Resolutions 359, 361, 362, 363, 364, 365, 367, 368, 370, 371, 372, 373, 374, 375, 377, 378, 379, 380.
Mr. President.
The junior senator from Virginia Beach.
Can SJR 380 be pulled from the block and go by for the day?
Without objection, SJR 380 will come out of the block and by for the day.
381, Senate Resolutions 130, 135, 138.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With the exceptions of H.R. 751, 752, 850, 853, and SJR 380, the question is, shall the resolutions be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolutions are agreed to. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could now return to the budget bill, which is Senate Bill 900 on page 15 of your calendar. I would respectfully move that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the privileges of the floor be granted to our extinguished members of the Senate Finance Committee staff.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the privileges of the floor granted to distinguished persons? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The rules are suspended. The privileges of the floor are granted. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, just to refresh our recollection, what we are dealing with today is the governor's introduced budget and the Senate amendments that have been recommended to you after much deliberation by the Senate Finance Committee. We will take up the committee amendments in a block, but any individual who wants to remove an amendment from the block, please do so after the clerk has read the number of that resolution. We will then proceed to vote on the uncontested Senate budget amendments that have not been removed from the block. After we have voted on those uncontested Senate amendments, then we will return to the committee amendments that have been taken out of the block and take them up individually in order. Following that, if there are any floor amendments, which I hope there are not, we will take those matters up. And the Senate Finance staff can answer any questions that you may have in the meantime.
Thank you, Senator. Madam Clerk.
You need to read.
Senate Bill 900, a bill for all amendments to Chapter 780 of the 2016 Assembly, which appropriated funds for the 2016-18 biennium and to provide a portion of revenues for the 2 years ending respectively on the 30th day of June 2017 and the 30th day of June 2018, submitted by the Governor of Virginia to the presiding officer of each House of the General Assembly of Virginia in accordance with the provisions of Section 2.2-1509 Code of Virginia. Reported from the Committee on Finance with amendments.
Mr. President.
Senator from James City County.
Mr. President, if the body would be so tolerant to allow the senator from Augusta and myself to make a few comments.
Absolutely, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are here today, obviously, under a special continuing order. The budget recommendations before you today are the result of some thoughtful choices about how to best use the resources of the Commonwealth. The members of the Senate Finance Committee worked diligently and collaboratively to bring forth for your consideration a structurally balanced budget that reflects the Senate's priorities. If you can recall, last year we adopted a budget that I characterized as being excellent, that addressed compensation, fully funded K-12, re-benchmarking, and provided incentives to stimulate growth in our economy, and it did so in a very commonsensical way. The final conference committee report was overwhelmingly supported by this body, and so I would suggest if you liked that budget last year, this one is also very good, albeit much smaller in scope. Our primary task this year has been to modify the budget to address the downturn in revenues over $1.2 billion. The committee members carefully scrutinized the strategies proposed to address this shortfall, as well as any discretionary spending items that were in the budget as introduced. In doing so, we were able to redirect some resources to the top priorities of the committee, namely supporting mental health, avoiding spending cuts for public education and safety net programs, and most importantly, providing an overdue pay raise for all state employees and teachers. As we indicated in November at the Senate Finance Retreat, we were committed to providing meaningful compensation package, if at all possible. Our recommendations include the following: a 3% salary increase for state classified employees, a 2% increase for college faculty, which they can enhance with their own resources, a 2% increase for state-supported local employees, and funding of the state share of a 2% salary increase for our public school teachers. Senator Hanger will now share with you some other details about our salary action and the other actions in the budget.
Senator Hanger, you had the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Just some brief observation. I think Senator Norman, Senator from James City County, has given you an appropriate overview, and indeed all of you have had an opportunity to have a briefing from our finance staff on individual matters of concern and an overview of where our priorities. And indeed, as we began this process, Mr. President, I would say that we outlined those priorities. Those priorities were to correct the inequity that we created this last year when we predicated state salary increases on revenue. We were able to adopt a strategy, and that was the overriding principle that guided our actions, was to basically cut through in working with the governor's proposed amendments into the budget that we bought off on last spring, that had a lot of good elements in it that we all worked hard on to achieve, that we basically went through that and made sure that we accumulated enough savings to fund the priorities. That being, as the senator from James City County indicated, the 3% across the board salary increase for state employees, the special incentive package that we created for the state troopers, which in the basic essence of a portion of it was going from roughly $36,000 to $43,000 per year for our troopers, with that moving on up through the ranks with a significant funding package. Further, we basically reinstated our decision last spring when we adopted the budget for the support of K-12 education, with our support for a 2% salary increase for our teachers and other school-supported employees. We also addressed the the 2% increase for local, state-supported employees, which would include constitutional offices. We also included the career development programs for those constitutional officers as well. In the area of mental health, which was our other priority that we collectively signaled as a priority at the beginning of the year, we were able to pare back and make sure we focused the monies necessary to address those funding needs for critical same-day access services where our community service boards and for permanent supportive housing for those that are in a position to come out of our institutions and reside in the community. With that, Mr. President, I'd just like to make a couple remarks about a culture that I think is moving in a very positive direction here in the Senate and is one that I hope that we can improve on from year to year. And that culture is this. Each member of this Senate represents concerns as we all prepare to come down here. When we're asked what we're going to do, we said the top priority is the budget. Well, there's certain members that have a seat on the Finance Committee and there's certain members who don't. The culture that I certainly hope to be a part of is basically creating opportunities for everyone to have significant input from the bottom up as we develop this budget. And I think that if you look back over a period of many years, you'll find that that's a culture that is changing, evolving, and I hope it will continue to evolve in that as we approached it in the subcommittee work, the subcommittees were somewhat autonomous with their building their budgets within their individual areas of concern in that they had an overall charge to basically reduce where they could so we could address and fund our top priorities, but then they could make decisions upon their own. With that, I'll point out one thing. They made decisions that I don't agree with in part, but the collective judgments of those subcommittees is sustained in this budget. And if they were individually isolated on this floor, I might have trouble individually voting for some of the decisions that they made. Be what it may, we have a certain amount of revenue that we need to protect if we're going to be conservative with this budget. So there are certain initiatives, if someone, as I do, have reservations about certain items and you bring them individually to this floor and not as a part of a total package, I may have difficulty with those, Mr. President, I would say today that my bottom line will be to preserve those revenues as we go into conference so we can make some decisions which will change some of the outcomes of our subcommittee work as we assimilated this budget. Some it will reinforce and sustain because, quite frankly, Mr. President, I think in total this budget is a more conservative budget than the House, more directed at our priority needs than the House, and one that we should, by a large margin, support here today. And so with that, Mr. President, I would yield to the majority leader, or at this time, if there are no further comments, I would yield to Madam Secretary for the individual items. I think the majority leader outlined the procedure in that we will walk through the amendments that have been offered. With the one exception rule, they can be pulled out. If there are members who, after looking at this, felt that we did that areas that the governor proposed in his introduced budget that you want to reach back and amend with a floor amendment, I would advise you the correct procedure for that is to get from your desk, walk over to the General Assembly building, go to the 10th floor, write out in longhand your amendment, and come back within an hour. And if there's anybody still here, we'll entertain your amendment. That wasn't serious, Mr. President, as you know, but if you do have, we do have staff here on the floor to address those floor amendments, and they will be helping us. But I would also advise you that the individual subcommittee chairs, whom I want to thank for their good work, are very knowledgeable about their subject matter, and with their staff support, will be able to address your questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Page 1, Item 0, Number 1. Item 1, Number 1. Page 2, Item 1, Number 2. Page 3, Item 1, Number 3. Item 1, Number 4. Page 4, Item 1, Number 5. Page 5, Item 1, Number 6. Item 1, Number 7. Page 6, Item 1, Number 8. Page 7, Item 1, Number 9. Page 8, Item 2, Number 1. Page 9, Item 2, Number 2. Item 6, Number 1. Page 10, Item 26, Number 1. Item 30, Number 1. Page 11, Item 32, Number 1. Item 33, Number 1. Page 12, Item 40, Number 1. Item 40, Number 2. Page 13, Item 40, Number 3. Item 53, Number 1.
The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Could item 53, number 1, come out of the block, please?
Without objection, item 53, number 1 will come out of the block.
Page 14, Item 53, Number 2. Item 59, Number 1. Page 15, Item 70, Number 1. Item 73, Number 4. Page 16, Item 76, Number 1. Item 76, Number 2. Page 17, Item 76, Number 3. Item 84, Number 1. Item 84, Number 2. Page 18, Item 84, Number 3. Item 84, Number 4. Page 19, Item 85, Number 1. Item 85, Number 2. Item 86, Number 1.
Mr. President?
The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Could numbers 86, number 1, number 2, and then on the next page, 86, numbers 3, 4, and 5, and the following page, 86, numbers 6 and 7, come out in the block?
Without objection, item 86, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will come out of the block.
Page 21, Item 88, Number 1. Page 22, Item 92, Number 1. Item 93, Number 2. Item 101, Number 2. Page 23, Item 101, Number 3. Item 105, Number 1. Item 105, Number 2. Page 24, Item 106, Number 1. Item 106, Number 2. Page 25, Item 106, Number 3. Item 106, Number 4. Page 26, Item 108, Number 1. Item 109, Number 1.
Mr. President.
The senator from Roanoke County.
On page 26, can item 109-1S please come out of the block?
Without objection, item 109-1 will come out of the block.
Page 27, Item 109, Number 2. Page 28, Item 110, Number 1. Item 111, Number 1.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Richmond City.
On page 28, can item 111, number 1S, come out of the block, please?
Without objection, item 111, number 1 will come out of the block.
Page 30, Item 116, Number 1. Item 120, Number 1.
President?
The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Could item number 116, number 1, come out of the block?
Without objection, item 116, number 1 will come out of the block. The senator from Hampton.
Mr. President, if item 120, number 1, could come out of the block, please.
Without objection, item 120, number 1 will come out of the block.
Page 30, Item 123, Number 1. Page 31, Item 125, Number 1. Item 125, Number 2. Item 125, Number 3. Page 32, Item 125.10, Number 1. Item 129, Number 1. Item 129, Number 2. Page 33. Item 129, number 3. Item 129, number 4. Page 34. Item 131, number 1. Item 131, number 2. Item 136, number 1. Page 35. Item 137, number 1. Item 138, number 1. Page 36. Item 138, number 2. Item 138, number 3. Item 138, number 4. Page 37. Item 139, number 1. Item 139, number 2.
Mr. President.
The senator from Roanoke County.
Can item 139, number 2, please come out of the block?
Without objection, item 139, number 2 will come out of the block.
Page 39, item 139, number 3. Item 139, number 4. Page 40, item 139, number 5. Item 139, number 6. Item 139, number 7. Page 41, item 139, number 8. Item 139, number 9. Page 42, item 144, number 1. Item 144, number 2. Page 43, item 144, number 3. Item 146, number 1. Item 146, number 2. Page 44. Item 146, number 3. Item 162, number 1. Page 45. Item 189, number 1. Item 203, number 1. Page 46. Item 213, number 1. Item 216, number 1. Page 47. Item 216, number 2. Item 219, number 1. Page 48. Item 299, number 1. Item 299, number 2. Page 49. Item 229, number 3. Item 230, number 1. Item 235, number 1. Page 50. Item 237, number 1. Item 237, number 2. Item 238, number 1. Page 51. Item 238, number 3. Item 240, number
Mr.
1.
President.
The senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Can 238, number 3, come out of the block, please?
Without objection, item 238, number 3 will come out of the block.
Page 52. Item 243, number 1. Item 247, number 1. Item 249, number 1. Page 53. Item 257, number 1. Page 54. Item 274, number 1. Item 275, number 2. Page 55. Item 275, number 3. Page 56. Item 275, number 4. Item 278, number 1. Page 57. Item 278, number 2. Item 281, number 1.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Richmond City.
On page 57, could item 281, number 1, come out of the block, please?
Without objection, item 281, number 1 will come out of the block.
Page 58. Item 284, number 1. Page 59. Item 284, number 2. Item 284, number 3. Page 60. Item 284, number 4. Page 61. Item 284, number 5. Item 284, number 6. Page 62. Item 285, number 1.
Mr. President.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Could item 285 1S on page 62 come out of the block?
Without objection, item 285, number 1 will come out of the block.
Page 63, item 288, number 1. Item 291, number 1. Page 64, item 292, number 1. Item 294, number 1. Page 65, item 294, number 2. Item 295, number 1.
Mr. President.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you. Could item 295, number 1, come out of the block, please?
Without objection, item 295, number 1 will come out of the block.
Page 66, item 295, number 2. Item 296, number 1. Page 68, item 300, number 2. Item 302, number 1. Page 69, item 306, number 1. Page 70, item 306, number 2. Item 306, number 3. Page 71, item 306, number 4. Page 72, item 306, number 5. Page 73, item 306, number 6. Item 306, number 7. Page 74, item 306, number 8. Item 306, number 9. Page 75, item 306, number 10. Item 306, number 11. Page 76, item 306, number 12. Page 77, item 306, number 13. Item 306, number 14. On page 79.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Bath County.
Could item 306, number 14, come out of the block?
Without objection, item 306, number 14 will come out of the block.
And Mr. President.
The senator from Prince William County.
Page 73, item 306, number 6S.
I'm sorry, Senator, repeat that one time. Page 73.
Item 306, number 6S. Come out of the block.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, item 306, number 6 will come out of the block.
Page 79, item 306, number 1. Item 306, number 16. Page 80, item 306, number 17. Page 81, item 306, number 18. Item 306, number 19. Page 82, item 306, number 20. Page 83, item 310, number 1. Item 310, number 2. Page 84, item 310, number 3. Item 310, number 4. Page 85, item 310, number 5. Item 310, number 6. Item 311, number 1.
Mr. President.
Senator from Bath.
Back on page 79, could we remove item 306, number 15, from the block?
Without objection, item number 306-15 will come out of the block.
Item 86, item 313, number 1. Item 313, number 2. Item 313, number 3. Page 87. Item 313, number 4. Item 313, number 5. Page 88. Item 313, number 6. Page 89. Item 313, number 7. Page 90, item 313, number 8. Item 313, number 9. Page 91, item 315, number 1. item 315, number 2. Page 92, item 315, number 3. Item 332, number 1. Item 332, number 2. Page 93, item 333, number 1. Item 333, number 2. Page 94, item 337, number 1. Item 337, number 2. Item 337, number 3. Page 95, item 341, number 1. Item 342, number 1. Page 96, item 342, number 2. Item 343, number 1. Page 97, item 348, number 1. Item 348, number 2. Page 98, item 348, number 3. Item 363, number 1. Item 364, number 2. Page 99, item 364, number 5. Page 100, item 365, number 2. Item 365, number 4. Page 101, item 369, number 1.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Richmond City.
On page 100, could item 365, number 4, come out of the block, please?
Without objection, item 365, number 4 will come out of the block.
On 101, item 376, number 1. 102, item 378, number 1. Item 380, number 1. Item 381, number 2. Page 103, item 383, number 1. Item 386, number 1. Page 104, item 387, number 1. Item 391, number 1. Page 105, item 393, number 1. Item 394, number 1. Page 106, item 394, number 2. Item 394, number 10. Page 107, item 394, number 19. Item 394, number 20. Page 108, item 395, number 1. Item 398, number 3. Item 398, number 4. Page 109, item 422, number 1. Item 422, number 2. Page 110, item 422, number 3. Item 422, number 4. Page 111, item 422, number 5. Item 423, number 1. Page 112, item 423, number 2. Item 433, number 1. Item 434, number 1. Page 113, item 434, number 2. Item 434, number 3. Item 437, number 1. Page 114, item 437, number 2. Item 438, number 1. Page 115, item 442, number 1. Page 116, item 442, number 2. Item 442, number 3. Item 442, number 4. Page 117. Page 442, number 8.
Senator from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 116, item number 442, 4S, if you would remove that from the block, please.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, item 442, number 4 will come out of the block. Senator from James City County.
I have disciples looking out for me, which is a good thing. If you also would take 442 8S out.
Without objection, item 442, number 8 will come out of the block.
Page 118, item 449, number 1, item 450, number 1, item 453, number 1. Page 119, item 453, number 2, item 453, number 3. Page 120, item 466, number 1.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
On pages 119 and 120, could item 453, number 3S, come out of the block?
Without objection, item 453, number 3 will come out of the block.
Page 121, item 470, number 1, item 470, number 2, item 472, number 1. Page 122, item 472.20, number 1. Page 123, item 475, number 1, item 475, number 2. Page 124, item 475, number 3, item 475, number 4, item 475, number 5.
Mr. President.
The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
Could item 475, number 5, come out of the block?
Without objection, item 475, number 5 will come out of the block.
Page 126, item 475, number 6. Page 127, item 475, number 7. Item 475, number 8. Page 128, item 475, number 9. Page 129, item 475, number 10. Page 130, item 476, number 1. Page 131, item 476, number 2. Page 132, item 476, number 3. Item 476, number 4. Item 476, number 5. Page 133. Item 476, number 6. Item 478.20, number 1. 134. Item 478.30, number 1. Item 488, number 1.
Mr. President.
The senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase.
Can item 478.30-1 go by or be pulled out of the block?
Without objection, item 478.30 will come out of the block.
Page 135, item 493, number 1. Item C-0, number 1. Page 136, item C-2.5, number 1. Page 137, item C-22.60, number 1. Item C-22.85, number 1. Page 138, item C-22.90, number 1. Item C-24.50, number 1. Page 139, item C-25, number 1. Item C-31.50, number 1. Page 140. Item C-31.55, number 1. Page 141. Item C-43.5, number 1. Item C-44, number 1. Page 142. Item C-48.10, number 1. 143. Item C-50, number 1. Item C-52.10, number 1. Page 144. Item C-52.20, number 1. Item C-52.60, number 1. Item 3-1.01, number 1. 145. Item 3-1.01, number 2. Item 3-1.01, number 3. Item 3-1.01, number 4. Page 146. Item 3-1.01, number 5. Item 3-1.01, number 6. Page 147. Item 3-1.01, number 7. Item 3-1.01, number 8. Item 3-1.01, 9, I'm sorry. Page 148. Item 3-1.01, number 10. Item 3-1.01, number 11. Page 149. Item 3-1.01, number 12. Item 3-2.03, number 1. Page 150. Item 3-2.03, number 2. Item 3-3.03, number 1. Page 151. Item 3-5.03, number 1. Item 3-5.17, number 1. Item 3-5.20, number 1. Page 153. Item 3-6.04, number 1. Item 4-1.02, number 1. Item 4-1.05, number 1. Page 155. Item 4-4.01, number 1. Page 156. Item 4-5.02, number 1. Item 4-5.03, number 2. Page 157. Item 4-5.03, number 3. Item 4-5.04, number 1. Page 158. Item 4-5.04, number 2. Item 4-5.04, number 3. Item 4-8.02, number 1. Page 159. Item 4-9.02, number 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The Senate will stand at ease for just a second. To order. The question on the floor will be whether these committee amendments will pass in block. And I'm going to read through with the exceptions. So if you all could just look through these with me, and if there are any that you'd like to add at the end, please let me know. Number 53, number 1 on page 13. 86, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on pages 19 and 20. 109, number 1, page 26. 111, number 1, page 28. 116, number 1, page 30. 120, number 1, page 30. 139, number 2, page 37. Number 238, number 3, page 51. 281, number 1 on page 57. 285, number 1, page 62. 295, number 1, page 65. 306, number 6, page 73.
Mr. President.
Yes, the senator from Portsmouth.
Yes, on page 75, item 306, number 10S. I'm going to need to abstain on that one. So do I need to ask that one to come out?
Later, we'll do that, Senator. Thank you. 306, number 14 on page 77. 306, number 15 on page 79. 365, number 4, page 100. 442, number 4, page 116. 442, number 8, page 117. 453, number 3, page 119. 475, number 5, page 124. 478.30, number 1, on page 134. The question is, shall the floor amendments pass in block?
Mr. President.
The senator from Fairfax City.
I have one additional.
Yes, Senator.
On item 125.10 on page 32.
Without objection, 125.10 on page 32 will be out of the block.
Mr. President, over here.
Senator from Eastern Fairfax City.
Just want to make sure I heard you say on page 119, item 453, 3S.
Yes, Senator.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, shall the amendments pass in block? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments pass in block. Returning to page 13. Item 53, number 1. Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you very much. I would respectfully move that Senate Amendment 53 1S on page 13 pass, sir.
Senator.
Speaking to that motion, over the years that I've had the privilege of being here, I have found that judges can be one of the most problematic and troublesome areas that we will deal with in the legislative process. Some of you have had the opportunity to serve long enough to know that judges used to be selected based upon who had the political muscle. And if you weren't in budget conference, you didn't necessarily get a judge no matter what the workload factors were. A number of years ago, some of us on this body who served on the Public Safety Subcommittee decided we needed to go to a scoring system. And I will say, at least in the mind of this one senator, what brought that about in my mind was when we were in budget conference, we were almost prepared to wrap up the budget when one of the members of the House of Delegates had a hissy fit and refused to sign off on the budget conference until he had a judge created in his jurisdiction. It was totally and completely unjustified. I would say, Mr. President, hence we went to a qualification and quantification on the judgeships. I am very mindful that there are those who would like to create continue to have a judge in the 20th Circuit with the retirement of Judge McCahill. And let me share a few things with you. It is currently the intention of the Senate to both authorize and fund 16 judgeships. Unfortunately, the judgeship with the retirement of Judge McCahill is number 22 in the list. So that is 6 below the cutoff, and we would be jumping over 5 other judgeships which have a stronger workload indicator. I would further say, based upon the demographical data that we have today, the caseload in that jurisdiction is shrinking, and even after that judge retires, the remaining 3 judges will only have a workload indicator of 1.1, and you have to be a 1 to be qualified to be funded. The interesting thing is, for those of you that might be in contiguous jurisdictions like Fauquier or Rappahannock, your judges will have a higher workload indicator, but those positions would not be filled. So, Mr. President, with all due respect, I would request that we do not pass item number 53 1S, as it is going to create chaos. And think about this. If we want to start down that road, I can assure you that some in this body are going to get a lot more judges than others of you. So I know the intentions are good. I appreciate that we all have to advocate for our jurisdictions. This would be a bad policy.
Be agreed to. He did. Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President, I'm not blowing on all cylinders today, and usually I only have 3 on a good day. I do want us to pass item number 53 1S as it's put in the budget.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall number 53, number 1, be agreed to? The senator from Fairfax City.
Gentleman yield for a question.
Would the senator from James City County yield for a question?
I'd be happy to.
He yields, Senator.
I would preface by saying I appreciate the gentleman's comments, but it's my recollection that 3, perhaps 4 years ago, we actually passed a law authorizing judges. And we have a certain number by state code that are authorized by each judicial district. So was that legislation meaningless, or what is the purpose of that legislation if it's now subject to the Finance Committee's decision as to what actually gets funded?
The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I would respond, but there are 2 considerations. There are judgeships that we authorize, and then there are judgeships that we fund, and they do not necessarily match up. And what we do is we look at the workload indicators that we have and determine whether or not it is appropriate or inappropriate to fund a judge. In November of this year, we will have the updated workload indicators from the National Center of State Courts. And at that time, all of us will be able to take a comprehensive review of what those latest numbers are to determine whether or not new judgeships should be authorized and whether new or existing judgeships should be funded. And we can do that because we have a biennium budget coming up.
Thank you. The senator from Fairfax City.
I would simply ask the gentleman, which does he think is more compelling evidence? A survey from the National Council of State Courts located in Williamsburg, I might add, or having to sit through 3 hours in a motions day in Fairfax County before I can get in front of a judge?
The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I realize that it's very personal and professional to you when you were sitting there waiting, but as I look around this room, I doubt if there is a single attorney who has not had to sit through a court proceeding waiting for them to call your particular case. So I realize it may chagrin you, but it is nothing unique to you, sir.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator, junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Senator.
When there is a floor amendment pending, but there is also a floor amendment in the amendment folder, what is the proper
yes,
procedure?
Senator, they're not in conflict, so we will make a motion to pass his, and then I will call on you after that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the motion.
Yes, Senator.
The senator from James City County is correct. I have a floor amendment on today to restore funding to the 20th Circuit, which is Loudoun, Fauquier, and Rappahannock for our circuit court judge. That is for a vacancy that was left when our most senior judge, Burke McCahill, retired on January 1st. This would bring us back to 5 judges in the circuit instead of 4. Judge McCahill had just been reappointed 2 years ago, so he would still have another 6 years on his term. I don't know what this body would have done had he not done us the courtesy of retiring. When he retired on January 1st, he did that with the intention, I believe, that this body would be able to appoint a successor for him. Instead, we have now are taking the money away, taking away his judgeship altogether. We will unwittingly, I think, or knowingly, create a situation where judges don't want to retire on January 1st or don't want to give the General Assembly an opportunity to appoint successors and they can just retire in the off season and the governor can appoint a different judge to take their place. Now, we seem to really rely on this weighted caseload study as if it's flawless, and I submit, unfortunately, that it's not. It does not take into account a lot of factors. It doesn't take into account at all use of interpreters in cases. And I know in my jurisdiction and in a lot of Northern Virginia, routinely we use interpreters and they can double the time it takes for cases to be heard. I disagree very strongly with the senator from James City County's assessment of our caseload in Loudoun County. Our population was 170,000 in 2010, 310,000 in 2000 it was 170,000, 310 in 2010, and it's about 380,000 people now. And our cases have kept pace with it. We were fortunate to have a little dip back in the Great Recession because people couldn't afford to get divorced. Well, guess what? Now they can, and their cases are taking quite a bit of time. Loudoun was a 4.7 in the weighted caseload study, but again, I would submit that that was a flawed study. So we have speedy trial issues in our criminal cases, and civil cases are always double, and were before we got the fifth judge, sometimes triple booked. And if you didn't get heard, you went right to the back of the line. Another issue is that we have suffered a great deal of opioid and heroin deaths in my jurisdiction, as I'm sure many of you have. And it was really the hope of the judges in Loudoun County to be able to stand up a drug court this year. We're not going to be able to do that if we don't have that fifth judge. So I would submit to the gentleman from James City County that I did like last year's budget because you funded our judge. And taking it away in this particular fashion makes no sense at all, and I would ask that the amendment fail.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Speaking to the amendment, Mr.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I read the weighted caseload study when it came out, and I appreciate the effort and the intent in trying to avoid a lot of games being played. But the reality is the study has a lot of problems. First of all, about half the localities in Virginia, the local governments, pay for a law clerk for each circuit court judge. Each law clerk costs $50,000, $60,000 per judge, something like that, maybe $45,000 in some jurisdictions. Having a law clerk there to support a judge means that judge spends a lot more time on the bench, a lot more time hearing cases, and instead of pushing paper, which in half the state, that doesn't happen. And I believe in the next study, their law clerks might be getting counted. I'm not really sure. But in half the state, our localities are investing a lot of money to make the system go faster, which doesn't get taken into account in terms of how this caseload study is determined. I would also submit that the way cases are litigated in some parts of the state are different than other parts of the state, just simply because the cases are bigger, they're more complex, there's more money at issue, people can afford to pay more. And I don't say that to say the lawyers are better or something like that. It's just people spend more money, and it takes a lot longer. And I've tried cases in all parts of the state, and it's different. And that's partly why we're here, is to be able to make those judgments and not defer to some, group that, is in theory objective and trying to figure it out. It doesn't even practice law in this state. And I would submit that there are some jurisdictions that I think game the study. There's some jurisdictions that open new cases, where in other jurisdictions we don't open a new case. They keep it under the same filing number. There's lots of things that go on that mess the study up. And so I don't think the data we get back is as good as it could be in terms of making these decisions. And that's why we got elected, to make these decisions, not to defer it to some other third party to make them for us. So in terms of two more things I just want to say really quick, just to elucidate this further. I think a lot of times at least when lawyers get up, people make lawyer jokes and they say that, that we're doing this for ourselves, or, we want to make more money or something like that. Let me just tell you, I had in Prince William County, by the way, the study said Prince William County should get another circuit court judge. I think it was 2 years ago. And Prince William County was authorized a new circuit court judge 2 years ago under this study. For some reason this year, Prince William County's judge got taken away using the same data. I'm not really clear why that happened, but in any event, that happened. Before Prince William was authorized as 6th Circuit Court judge, I think 2 years ago, I had cases in Prince William County where I would go to court, I would get there at 10 a.m., they would tell me, get in line. And I would wait around until 1 o'clock. They'd say, we can't hear you today, come back tomorrow. This is after spending hours of time prepping my client, getting witnesses to court, getting ready. Then I have to come back the next day, get in line. I wait around, noon would roll around, they'd say, we can't hear you today, come back next week. You know what? I'm making plenty of money sitting on my butt, sitting around a courthouse, not waiting to be heard, and my client has to pay my bill anyway, right? Not funding these things probably makes lawyers more money, because all we do is sit around in court and get paid by the hour to sit there. The reason we want these things to get funded is so our clients aren't having to waste a lot of money and time, and they're having their life and all their stuff put on hold because the system isn't capable of processing their problem. And so, I think a lot of us want to see the system work. We want to see it work well and work efficiently, and that's why we want to do it. And having that kind of real-life intelligence by having people that practice in these courts make these decisions, I think, is better than having this system that does it. And the last thing I'll say is, in terms of the wisdom of this study, Fairfax County was authorized a 15th Circuit Court judge in, I think, 1993. And the study recommended that be taken away, that it wasn't merited. I want to point out, in 1993, according to Google, Fairfax County had 866,000 people. Today, it's grown by more than 300,000 people. So Fairfax County today has grown by almost the same size of the second largest jurisdiction in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, Prince William County, almost as much. And the study says it still should go backwards. And I don't think that's because Fairfax County was great at getting judges back under the old system. I don't think that has anything to do with it. But I would submit that this study isn't coming out with the correct results. And I think the unhappiness you're hearing is from people that have to practice in this world who know that it isn't working, and that's why we need to fund these positions. And, and in the absence of the Prince William spot being funded and the extra Fairfax spot not being funded, I can't support this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senior senator from Loudoun, Senator Black.
I'm not sure which I'm speaking for. Do we have the amendment before us?
Senator,
or
you're
what are we
speaking to the committee amendment.
Okay. Well, let me just say that I am very concerned about the way that we're doing the judges and the validity of some of the data. And I'm aware that in the areas that I represent, they're very high growth, very fast moving, and as a consequence, you have really massive land use issues. And as you have we've got data centers. Anybody who's been around up there see these gargantuan data centers, and there's going to be litigation, construction litigation that comes out of that. That's going to be extensive. This is not just running in and knocking out some quick case and moving on. This is something that takes a lot of time. And so I think the case mix differs in some of these areas. And anyway, we had, I know in Loudoun County, for example, we had a very senior judge that we lost, and we had 3 junior judges who, they had 2 years or less on the bench. All good people. And anyway, it's put us in a pinch. And I know in Prince William we also have a similar situation. So I do hope that at some point along the process that some of the thoughts that you're hearing today are taken into account, and perhaps, if possible, there can be some adjustments made. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Northern Fairfax County, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to associate myself with the comments from the senator from James City County. Having been part of this body when everything was done by politics, and it really mattered how senior you were or which committee you chaired or which party you were with, I think what we're trying to do is to get the politics out and good public policy in and have some kind of a standard we can use when we determine which judges to have. I was somewhat disappointed also with the last study. I think it did not have all of the considerations that should have happened. It was updated. And now we're starting with a new study that is going to be completed, I believe, in the end of October. My suggestion to those who are not happy with the old study, who don't have faith in our effort to do this, is that they engage themselves and the members of their judiciary in suggesting how to make the study better. Because the alternative is going to be to go back to a really politically rotten system. And I believe that this organization is sincere. This is what they do. It's small. It's a nonprofit. It's highly regarded around the country. And there are things they may be willing to change. One, for example, I've noticed is that they take what I think is too much attention to the distances traveled by judges and too little credit for those circuits that have got good docket control. If you have bad docket control, you do better than if you have good docket control. Perhaps looking at that would be helpful. But I think the approach to take is how do we make this a better study, not to slam it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. If no one else cares to speak, sir.
You had the floor, Senator.
I listened very attentively to the arguments that were advanced by those senators from the particular jurisdictions that are affected. And there are lots of retorts that I could make about the inaccuracy of your comments, but let me just say this. There has been no abdication of the authorization or the funding of judges to a third party. We hired the National Center of State Courts to do an independent analysis for us, and after reviewing that analysis, the Senate Finance Committee, and especially the subcommittee dealing with the subject matter, made a determination that it was the only empirical data that was available to us to make an informed decision. I appreciate your anecdotal comments, but I say to you, your situation is not unique. I probably get around the Commonwealth of Virginia as much as any attorney in this body because of the nature of what I do for 100 lawyers. And there is a wide difference of approaches. And as the senator from Northern Fairfax suggested, some of it is a docket control system. Some are very sophisticated. Others are not sophisticated. But I appreciate very much what you are saying. But you are asking us to pass over 5 other judgeships that have a better score than this particular judge and say to them, tough, you don't get funded. We're going to say to Rappahannock and Fauquier that your caseload indicators are higher, but we're going to drop down and do that in Loudoun. I suggest to you that this is not the end of the discussion. In November, we will have the updated demographical information from the National Center of State Courts. You can scrutinize it as hard as you want. You can try to find additional empirical data that may refute or, surprisingly enough, may support what is in there. But I would respectfully ask that the Senate amendment be agreed to, which does not include the funding of this judgeship, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the committee amendment be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. And Senator, there are several floor amendments, so I'm going to go through these and then we'll come back to your floor amendment, if that's okay. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, the senator from James City County.
I appreciate that you want to come back to them, but those floor amendments are in contradiction to the amendment that we just adopted. So they would not be appropriately before the body, and I can make a parliamentary inquiry at the moment.
The Senate will stand at ease. Moving forward to page 19, number 86, numbers 1 through 7. Don't all stand up at once. The senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 86, number 1S, that was pulled out of the block, I would move the passage of the amendment. And speaking to that,
The senator has the floor. Do you want to do them in block or you want to do one at a time?
I'm happy to do them in a block and explain each one.
That's fine, Senator. Thank
I
you.
think that's more efficient. Okay. So item 86, number 1S. In this case, the committee removed the funding in the introduced budget related to $570,000 that the governor had included to maintain a system to deliver ballots to military, overseas, and overseas voters. It was for sure the sense of the committee that we want to continue to make it easy for them to vote. However, this $570,000, this has already been paid for by Department of Defense funds. The system has already been developed. And so in this case, we believe that that was redundant and unnecessary, and so we removed that $570,000 from the budget.
Thank you, Senator.
Moving on to item 86, number 2. This removed funding from the introduced budget of $50,000, which had been included to print additional voter registration and absentee ballot applications. It was the belief of the committee that there were sufficient resources already to provide applications for voter registration and absentee ballots within the existing budget. Item 86, number 3S. There was $1 million added in the introduced budget for enhancement to the Veris system. And this kind of gets us into the land that we have all enjoyed, I think, visiting, some of us in great detail when we had a joint meeting of the P&E committee in the fall where we heard from registrars, we heard from the Department of Elections related to Veris. It is not the case that this subcommittee or the Finance Committee in any way wishes to frustrate what it is that the Department of Elections would do to carry out an orderly election. It is not in the interest of anybody for us to make it more difficult. However, it is clear that the enhancements to Veris and the amount of resources that are going to be required to be spent on that are both a resource question as well as a management issue. And much of the challenges that arose last year were a part of, and I think many of the registrars and many of the people who've worked on this process believe that part of that process, part of the challenge of that process was that it was undertaken in a presidential election year. And so I think to that end, there were concerns about trying to undertake that process again in a statewide election year. So as somebody who has repeatedly introduced budget amendments to provide funding to the Department of Elections, and as somebody who holds that in a high priority, I had some mixed feelings about how we were addressing this. I know it will certainly be part of a larger discussion, and will be addressed as we go through more of these in the block, but this will be part of a larger discussion in conference, I am sure. But I will tell you that there were some underlying concerns about the execution of this, and for sure the execution in this election year. Moving on to item 86, number 4S. The governor had introduced $217,000 for one additional full-time employee for changes to the voter system. The committee had general reservations about allocating those funds given the issues with the current functionality. Item 86, number 5S, that was pulled out of the block. This was included in the governor's introduced budget. It was $2 million in the second year to continue with the HAVA funds. This was reduced dramatically, and I will tell you that it was the sense of this committee as we were initially sitting down. The other responsibility of the General Laws and Technology Subcommittee was compensation. And so it's like a balloon. When you squeeze one side, it has an impact on the other. And so as we were going through the line items, we made it our highest priority to focus on compensation. And that meant that we had to remove some items from other sections of this budget, and that meant that the Department of Elections was one of those categories that took a big hit. And so, again, this was one of those areas, and that $2 million for the funding was removed. And that moves us on to item 86, number 6S. This is also a case where the governor had included $105,000 for one-time funds for a call center. It was, again, the sense of the committee in going through this larger section of funding items asked for by the governor that the committee had asked questions of the Department of Elections and those who came and testified before the committee. It was our understanding that most of the calls related to the elections were often received and handled by local registrars' offices. And in looking for areas where we could take back money, that's one of the areas where we thought we could take back money. So, with that, no, there is one more budget amendment. Item 86, number 7S. The governor had, in his introduced budget, included 5 additional general funded full-time employee positions over the biennium, 3 in fiscal year 17 and 2 in 18. We removed those 5 positions, again, looking to recapture some resources. And our rationale was this, that the department had already transitioned 8 contract positions to full-time classified staff positions, and this was reflected in the 2017 budget. And this was to administer election systems and programs, part of this ongoing transition process that they have undertaken. And we believe that the department can continue to hire contract employees and deploy existing staff to administer these current systems. So in our rather aggressive effort to take back funds from other categories to pay for compensation, the Department of Elections is one of those categories where we took a hit. And so with that, that is my best explanation, Mr. President, of what our actions were.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Procedural question before I speak, which is, can we vote on number 1S separate from the block of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
That will be fine, Senator.
Okay. Would the gentleman from, or senator from Fauquier rise for a question?
Would the senator from Fauquier yield for a question?
I'm happy to yield, Mr.
She
President.
yields, Senator.
I would ask the gentlewoman, when we had our marathon meeting of the P&E committee meetings, of the Joint P&E Committee from both the Senate and the other body this fall, was there not a consensus that the VERA system was not working the way it should?
The senator from Fauquier.
Mr. President, it's absolutely true. And I will tell you that among the issues that were raised were this issue of major changes being made, the concerns about having to hire outside people to come in and revamp the system in the middle of a presidential election year when there were so many hits to the system from the outside, effectively. And so both of our committees heard that, and I think one of the fundamental concerns that we had was going in and trying to rebuild this system in the middle of an election year was a challenge, and it had, in fact, cost the Commonwealth of Virginia, I think, substantially more because it was necessary that they had to go and hire outside contractors to come in and do much of this work. And so I think much of what the takeaway from that discussion was is that we not only have a resource issue, but we have a management issue in terms of timing and execution. And I have great sympathy for many of you have heard Matt, who came and testified both before that committee and before our finance subcommittee, the incredible work that he has done in-house. But there are huge complications, in my view, with what it is we would try to undertake this year. But it is also the case that, in previous years, as I've said, I have carried budget amendments to try to make certain that they have the money that they need. And again, I am very confident that this will be the subject of a lot of discussion in conference.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria.
Would the senator yield for another question?
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
Yes, I'm happy to yield.
She yields, Senator.
The senator acknowledged what she characterized as a management issue, but also a resource issue. And it's my recollection that the senator introduced a budget amendment in the previous year for millions of dollars in support of additional funding for the Department of Elections. And I'm wondering if something has changed over that interim when we're now cutting, or we're now proposing to cut $4 million if the needs have all been met from her proposed funding.
The senator from Fauquier.
Mr. President, I'm glad he asked that question. Indeed, the needs are far from being met. And I think it's very clear, especially from the testimony from our registrars and from the discussions we've had with the Department of Elections, that we have a long, long way to go in rectifying the challenges that we have with this current technology, with making it work, with making it accessible, with resolving the questions of interface between the Department of Elections and with those who are our registrars who are working around the Commonwealth. It is absolutely not the case that I feel satisfied that between my last budget amendment request and this year that much of that has been resolved, but I will tell you there was one significant change between how my subcommittee had to address these issues previously and how we addressed them this year. And that was that we came back this year, and this was, I believe, the sense of my subcommittee and certainly my sense, my view, and that was we had a major, major compensation issue that we had to address. And so in sitting down and working through the committee, in order to remove from the line items and categories where we believe that there were excesses, certainly in the first budget amendment, for example, where it was clear that was a redundancy and unnecessary, it was important to take, in my mind, resources where we could certainly put them back later in the year if we have additional revenue, put them back in next year when it might be a more appropriate time to actually revamp Veris. It was my view that it was far better to allocate as much of the resources as we possibly could to address those very urgent compensation issues. In order to fully fund that, it was going to require us to take money from other categories.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria.
To the amendments.
Senator has the floor.
And I want to thank the senator for her explanation of number 1, which makes sense to me. But numbers 2 through 7, the senator acknowledged that there's a lack of resources, and I agree. And I hope there's going to be bipartisan support to defeat 86.2 through 86.7, because fundamental to the operation of our democracy is a fair, open, and efficient election system. This is what most people come in contact with, other than DMV, with their government. We've all run for elected office, and we need it to be smooth and efficient. Now, the Senate, this Senate budget cuts funding for the Department of Elections by over $4 million. That was 28% of its proposed funding from the governor, if I compute right. This is a drastic cut that will undermine the ability of the department to complete its critical mission of ensuring the integrity of our election process. And there should be bipartisan consensus, because there are many on the other side of the aisle and some on this who believe that there's problems right now with secure statewide voter registration database. There are people who talk about fraud. Let's prevent voter fraud if it was to occur, and particularly with the personal information of voters, and prevent it from occurring. I would note that Veris, the system that is proposed, that we are not fixing today, it does list maintenance activities, and when it ensures the accuracy and integrity of the registration list, that includes removal of deceased individuals, felons, non-citizens from the rolls. It includes checking for duplicate registrations across state lines. It includes monitoring for voters who have moved in and out of the state. We want to make that better, not make the system break. We all know what happened the night that the deadline was for the voter registration in Virginia. The system broke. Some people went to court to stop it from being extended, and it was extended, but it was confusing to the voters. Let's let people register to vote easily. Let's have security. You know, the Federal Help America Vote Act, HAVA, grant currently covers approximately 60% of the department's operating budget, and those funds will be depleted by the third quarter of fiscal year 2018. Maintaining Veris is the main system used by local registrars to conduct their legally required functions. And I would say without this funding, the functionality of our system is at risk. Voter registration system improvements were cutting by $1 million. We're cutting our improved local access to voter registration systems. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I hope you will join me in voting no on items 2 through 7, and I will for a more efficient and secure voting system. And thanks to the Senator's explanation, I will be voting yes on one and no on the remaining amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Fauquier, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. President. If no one else wishes to speak, I'd just like to make one final comment and one point of clarification. To respond to the gentleman from Arlington who makes important points about access and important points about the orderly administration of an election, I will tell the gentleman that, yes, we had a delicate balance to strike here, trying to allocate resources to compensation, trying to also address some of the issues that have been raised. Yes, we have issues of HAVA funding and the need to backfill some of that, but I wanted to make one important point that is very, I think might be overlooked. We are not cutting anything from the current Department of Elections budget. That's really important for the body to understand. This is new money that the governor had added into his introduced budget, and all we're doing is saying is we're not taking that new money. In fact, we were directing the money to compensation and other categories that were within the General Government and Technology Subcommittee. That's critical to this discussion. We are not taking any of their current money away. They currently had $9 million. This was going to bump that up. So that's important. We left some money there for them, and I am confident that we will come back at a later time and revisit that, because it is the case that they will lose their HAVA money, and that money will have to be replaced. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator from Alexandria.
Yeah, will the Senator from Fauquier yield for one question from the Senator from Alexandria?
I'm happy to yield. I'm so sorry. The gentleman from Alexandria, I apologize. I said Arlington.
I'm proud to represent both. I would just say, while it may not cut state funding, I believe that the Senator acknowledged that we're going to lose our federal HAVA funding. So in effect, will the department not have less money to do the same functions when we pass, if we were to pass the Senate amendments?
The Senator from Fauquier.
Well, Mr. President, to be clear, what we have is their current budget. The governor was adding additional resources into this budget, so we're not cutting what they already have. It's true that they have additional funding coming from the HAVA funds that we would like to backfill and hopefully will backfill, but that was just the decision that we made in this subcommittee. But you're right, they will be losing some funding.
Thank you, Senators. Thank you. The question is, shall item 86, number 1 be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Moving to 86, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. The question is, shall those items be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The amendments are agreed to. Moving forward to page 26.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the amendments be agreed to. And speaking to that,
the senator has the floor.
The governor's proposed budget reduced funding for the Virginia Growth and Opportunity Fund from $5.5 million the first year and $30 million the second year. He reduced that to $900,000 for the first year and $19.7 for the second year. The committee restored one half of the $15 million reduction in the governor's proposed budget over the 2-year period. The committee provided a total of $1.95 million for the first year and $26.1 for the second year of funding and allotment as follows: $5.9 million or $650,000 for each of the qualifying 9 regions as they build their organizations in gap analysis. Unused funds would roll into the second year's grants. $12.2 million the second year for grants based on each region's share of the state's population, and $10 million the second year for competitive grants. Currently, the 9 regional councils are forming, and it is expected the regions will be eligible for capacity building funds in March. Any reduction or delay in funding could hamper the ability of these regional councils to properly organize and be effective.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, there's a significant diversity of thought on this floor regarding how economic prosperity is best pursued. It was my hope last year, though, that we could at least agree that the allocation of tax dollars should be determined by elected officials that are accountable to the voters. Unfortunately, the decision went opposite of my way. Today, the decision, though, is how much money we should be giving to this unelected body to distribute of tax dollars. And it's my hope that we will, those of us that have reservations with this program, will vote against this today, which will further grow the program there. And I also hope that we'll have the opportunity to register that dissent as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I rise in support of encouraging the body to accept the budget amendment. I'm very mindful of what the senator just shared with us, but I think it's also important to share with you that as of this date, the private sector has put more of their personal money into this Go Virginia initiative than the Commonwealth of Virginia has. This was not an idea that percolated up out of the legislative body. It was an idea that came about as a result of some vision and some determination and willingness for the private sector to put their own money in to help undertake a transformation of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And it is approaching 9 different regions, which covers the entire state, and I would ask you to support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 109, number 1, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Page 28.
Mr. President.
The senator from Roanoke County.
Seeing there 8 hands, I request a recorded vote.
Thank you, Senator. There being at least 8 hands, there will be a recorded vote. The motion is whether item number 109, number 1, will be agreed to. All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 36, noes 4.
Ayes 36, noes 4. The item is agreed to. Page 28. Item 111, number 1. The senator from Mecklenburg. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the amendment be agreed to. This restores the funding for the Enterprise Zone program
The governor's introduced budget reduced funding by $1 million the first year and $835,000 the second year. The committee restored the funding removed by the governor in order to mitigate the need for prorate grant awards. The Enterprise Zone program provides grants to qualified businesses that locate or expand in designated areas. Eligibility is based on capital investment, job creation, and wages paid with lower thresholds applied to areas of high unemployment. The program is consistently oversubscribed with qualified recipients relying on prorated grants. As an examples, in the year 2014, only 69% was paid. In 2015, 66% was paid. Speaking to the former issue of we should do economic development, if we're going to do economic development, we need to do it right as we commit to do.
Thank you, Senator. The question issue, item 111, number 1, be agreed to. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Page 30. Item 116, number 1. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
I move that the amendment be agreed to. This removes the increase for occupational safety compliance. The introduced budget included an additional $1.5 million for the second year to fund 15 positions in the Department of Labor and Industry. 6 positions are proposed in the Virginia Occupational Safety and Health Program, 3 positions in the Virginia Voluntary Protection Program, and 6 positions are proposed in consultation services. The committee reversed the increase in funding. The proposed increase would be a significant increase over the current funding levels. In current 2017 funding totals $10 million, of which $3.5 is general funds money. The committee did not see evidence that the current levels of personnel and inspection are inadequate. Given current fiscal constraints, the committee is not able to fund new spending initiatives unless an immediate pressing need is identified.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Alexandria, Senator Eben.
Thank you. Speaking to the amendment.
Senator has the floor.
The Department of Labor and Industry's Occupational Safety and Health Program, it administers and enforces safety and health activities for general industry and construction, agriculture, public sector. So it may not seem that important to a lot of us. It may seem like just over-regulation, but this includes response to life and safety, work-related fatalities, imminent danger, non-fatal accidents, and high-hazard industries. You know, in 2016, VOSH inspected 43 work-related fatalities. That's 39% more fatalities than in the previous calendar year, and the highest number of work-related fatalities in over a decade. And I would venture to say that the number of personnel has certainly not increased over the last decade, at least the last decade or so. And I think these fatalities do show a need to fulfill some of these 7 unprecedented, 7 open and 1 closed, or I should say the inspections need to be done. Right now, there's 7 open and 1 closed inspections at a single large employer in response to 4 fatal accidents, 2 non-fatal accidents involving an amputation and a burn victim, as well as comprehensive safety and health inspections, all within 1 year, 1 employer. And that's not an isolated incident. This has happened for a number of years that these positions have gone unfunded. And it's easy to say that, you know, it's a drastic increase from where they are now. But really what it is getting back what they should have had years ago, as well as dealing with these fatalities. We do not want to have 39% more fatalities in another year. So with that, I hope that we will defeat the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question issue, item 116, number 1, be agreed to. All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Moving to, we're still on page 30, item 120, number 1, the senator from Mecklenburg.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment be agreed to. This removes funding from the Solar Energy Development Program. The governor's introduced budget included $1.1 million for the second year to fund solar energy development programs. The committee reversed that proposal. Given current fiscal constraints, the committee is not in the mood to fund new spending initiatives unless an immediate or pressing need is identified. The proposed funding was intended to provide funding for low-interest revolving loan funds and a credit enhancement program to reduce the cost of capital and incentivize additional solar energy projects. Currently, there are a number of the solar projects that are being negotiated with local planning committees without this effort.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall I?
President?
Yes, the senator from Hampton, Senator Locke.
Mr. President, I think we need to get in the mood. The House and Senate both eliminated the $1.1 million of general fund support included in the introduced budget bill to support development of solar industry. And what the governor's introduced budget did was to put in the $1.1 million for solar industry by deploying 2 low-interest loan strategies. The 2 strategies were a low-interest revolving loan program and a loan loss reserve fund. The introduced budget included these funds for the 2 low-interest loan strategies. In order to have the 2 programs would provide support to local public school divisions and small businesses and commercial, institutional, and individual customers, respectively. Virginia does not have a program to support the development of this industry in the Commonwealth, and until Virginia makes such an investment, the industry will not consider Virginia a player. The industry has developed and matured in surrounding states, placing Virginia in a very advantageous second mover position. Solar contractors in Virginia and across the country believe 2017 will see significant solar sales because of decreasing and expiring tax credits, which for 2017 is now at 10%. These contractors have expressed the need for a loan product for the customers and to support their business growth. And this will put Virginia at a disadvantage until we do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Currently, there is an applicant, or has been approved, to build a solar farm in Mecklenburg County. A second company is already putting plans in for one in Halifax, Mecklenburg, Brunswick, and there is a third company that's talking about putting one in Greenville County. So I think that we have a very active market, and it's not necessary.
Thank
I
you,
ask you
Senator.
to support the amendment.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would point out to the members, while this is a tough decision to have to take this out, there is a permit being filed to build a power line across the James River from the nuclear power plants to ensure the peninsula has sufficient power. In that permit request, in the course of negotiations, the $170 million power line project also has additional $85 million that the state has negotiated in for viewshed mitigation. Now, there's a list of those projects, but that permit's not yet been issued, and I would suggest to the governor, and I hope they're looking at it, $85 million is a whole lot of money. It's going to be conditioned to the permit. It's going to come to the state. Right now, it's being allocated for other projects, trails, land, repair and buffers, and things like that. But I would say that this is directly related and probably qualify under that permit application. And I would hope that they would be a little bit more creative as they look at this mitigation money and look at some of these projects to help deploy that and perhaps mitigate the need for the next power line, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 120, number 1, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The chair is uncertain. We'll have a recorded vote. All in favor of agreeing to item 120, number 1, will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 25, noes 15.
Ayes 25, noes 15. The item is agreed to. On page 32, item 125.10. The senator from Mecklenburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the amendment be agreed to. This reverses the funding to create the Virginia International Trade Corporation. The proposed budget included $7.2 million to create the corporation, and that would be transferred from the Economic Development Partnership. The committee reversed the transaction and the new funding. House Bill 858 last year created a new economic development agency by proposing to separate international trade from the rest of VEDP. After analyzing the impact of creating a new state agency and determining that there would be additional costs to the Commonwealth of more than $1 million per year, the Finance Committee chose not to fund the new agency at this time. Related amendments reverse transfers from the Economic Development Partnership to the international trade.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Fairfax City, Senator Peterson.
I think that the gentleman summarized it correctly. We created this last year, and it seems like we're pulling the plug on it almost immediately. I've been a critic that we have economic development agencies all over the place, and I think the gentleman from Roanoke County pointed this out a few minutes ago. We have VEDP, we have Go Virginia, we have the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, formerly known as the Governor's Opportunity Fund. I mean, nobody knows what these entities do separately. They all pretty much do the same thing. And then we created this Virginia International Trade Corporation. I only mention that because for years I carried the Virginia Korea Advisory Board, which would have been an all-volunteer board, which frankly would have worked on a trade relationship that's a no-brainer for our community, particularly in Northern Virginia. And the bill was spiked last year on the other side of the hall because, quote-unquote, we were going to put this International Trade Corporation in place. It's ironic to see it's going down the tube so fast. I will say that international trade remains the future of this economy. I'll simply say in my own law practice, some of my biggest cases now are international firms that do business in Virginia, and we would do well to bring them in. And I don't know if VEDP can do that, but I guess apparently it won't be the International Trade Corporation.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the amendment.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The gentleman from Fairfax City raises some valid points. We did have legislation last year that authorized this. What happened, as we're all aware, we can develop some concerns. The JLARC report with the operation management of Virginia Economic Development Partnership. We have legislation moving through the process right now to correct some of those concerns. We have a new executive director that's been hired, and there was an additional monies that would have been required to stand up this entity that had not been identified appropriately in the budget. So it was the collective judgment of the Senate Finance Leadership, House Appropriations Leadership, and the Governor's Office that we would hold back on implementing this until the corrective actions were taken with VEDP, and that we then had an opportunity with that to put monies in place to stand it up. So it's not a done deal that it will not happen. It is just that it's been delayed so that we can do some corrective actions with leadership and management before we stand up this particular entity. So I would hope the body would support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 125.10, number 1, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Page 37. Item 139, number 2. The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the item pass, and speaking that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Mr. President, this is an amendment that removed the $55.5 million that the governor had in his budget for a one-time teacher bonus and replaced it with a $84 million teacher increase, but it also includes instructional personnel. Mr. President, it was determined after some review that the flexible spending that we had placed in last year that was one-time and non-reoccurring could be used to assist in this way. I know that some areas of this Commonwealth further, especially to the east, you may have heard that somehow that 1.5 is more than 2. It is not. You may have heard that 55 is more than 84. It is not, and that one time is more than permanent in a teacher raise. So, Mr. President, I think this is the best approach for both teachers and for support personnel throughout the Commonwealth. I hope we would pass the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 139, number 2, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Page 51. Item 238, number 3. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask the body to agree to item 238, number 3, and speaking to that motion.
Senator has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, for a number of years we have embarked on the planning of the 400th anniversary of 1619, where 4 defining events took place in Virginia, and I won't reiterate those historical moments. But it is a long-term strategic planning, and significant amount of monies have already been spent in hiring an executive director, bringing on other individuals to assist with that commemoration. For those of you that were around in 2007, I think you will recall that that was certainly a rather historical event, and that is a massive understatement. Perplexing to me, the governor removed $5.2 million from that commemoration, which very candidly would just stop it in its place. And so I think it is a commemoration that is going to bring visitors to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and not just to the historic triangle, but all over Virginia. The Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation, Inc., which is the private arm of Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation, has been very successful in getting significant private dollar contributions from Dominion Virginia Power and also from Altria. And I suggest to you, Mr. President, that the importance of that is, if we were to strip this money out of the Jamestown-Yorktown Foundation, having been very involved in 2007 in raising money for that commemoration, it is going to be very difficult to continue to raise funds. So I think it's a good stewardship of our money, and I would ask that that amendment be agreed to.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 238, number 3, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Page 57. Item 281, number 1. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Speaking to the motion that the body adopt item 281, number 1, this is perplexing to me from a policy standpoint. I know there's been a lot of conversation about higher education, but a number of years ago that the General Assembly, on a bipartisan and a bicameral basis, made a decision that out-of-state students would have to pay 100% of the cost of their education. And for the first time, we embodied in statute and budget that they would have to pay towards the capital projects. And over the years, what we have done is that we have very modestly increased the amount that they would pay towards a capital project. What this does is it provides that $1 per credit hour will be increased for capital expenses. And for those of you that cannot reflect back to the good old days when you were in college, that would come out probably between $30 and $32 per year per out-of-state student. The good thing about that is that that money would be used for the capital expenses and go back to the Treasury Board. And I would respectfully ask that we agree to that amendment, sir.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 281, number 1 be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Page 62. Item 285, number 1. The senator from Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the amendment pass and speak to that.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. This amendment is a language amendment addressing the Children's Services Act, known to most of us as the Comprehensive Services Act. Mr. President, we have experienced significant growth in the cost of this program over the last couple of years. Many of you who have been around for a while recognize that this program is a very worthwhile program, an important program, but we had taken measures to curtail growth and actually had accomplished that for a while. But now there was a particular sector of growth in private educational placements that caused us in this current budget to have to put in an addition. We don't see it on the table today because it was already in the introduced budget, about $85 million. $85 million will buy a lot, Mr. President. Certainly these services are well spent on these children, but $85 million additional general fund is what we had to put up in addition to lottery monies to accomplish the state share of a 2% salary increase for our teachers and other school personnel. So what we're doing with this amendment is basically creating a stakeholder group to evaluate various options. It appears that some of the language, there may be some concern that we're prejudicing the outcome by perhaps making it appear that we want to transfer it to the Department of Education, where rather than having some sufficient, there may be some capitated amount or cap amount that we would pay. But that's the essence of it, Mr. President, and I would hope if there is some concern in the language, which if someone has that concern, they can express it now, that we can address this with some additional language in conference. So I hope we would support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Mr. President, will the gentleman from Augusta yield for a question?
Would the senator yield? He yields, Senator.
I'd be pleased to yield, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would say to the gentleman that I was contacted by some families who have autistic children who this program is very important for, because I think this program allows them to have services or education for their children, for their autistic children, funded outside of in a private educational setting, I guess. And there was some concern from them that this might be the first step towards revoking those services, which have been very helpful to them, and having their kids have to revert to public school where they weren't really being satisfied with the level of services they were getting at the schools. The school system really wasn't capable of handling the level of services their kids needed. And
right. Mr. President, I would say to the senator that is a concern that has been expressed, and in fact, I've already had a conversation over the last 24 hours with an individual who was representing the interests of one of the most exemplary schools serving autistic children here in this region. And we've set up a meeting hopefully for either tomorrow afternoon or Monday to maybe fine-tune some of this language here. There's been a significant growth in spending due to additional services for autistic children, but I would hope that that concern can be addressed, because that is not the intent at all, to deny services for these children, and particularly to inhibit the ability of these children to attend a school such as the one that I'm familiar with in the greater Richmond area. But hopefully we can work that language out so it won't pose a threat to these programs.
Okay, I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Senator. The junior senator from Loudoun, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just add to hopefully allay some of the concerns of the senator from Eastern Fairfax County, that Virginia is one of the few states in which if children are placed pursuant to an IEP in a private day program, the parents maintain a veto if there's any decision to change that on the part of the school or anybody else as a part of the IEP team. So parents are able to keep those kids in the schools, sometimes against what the school's wishes may be.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 285, number 1, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Page 65. Item 295, number 1. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment pass and speak to that.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment concerns one of the uses that we are intending to make of a bit of surplus we have in our TANF program. And this is what is referred to as the LARC program. And, Mr. President, I know you are well aware of this. You were early on, even last year, interested in this program being put in place. The concern in reaching a consensus on this, I think most of us on both sides of the aisle recognize the benefits of this particular program, but we're trying to thread the needle here in terms of coming up with something that will be politically viable on both sides of this General Assembly. So what we have done within our committee is basically limit this to a particular form of long-acting reversible contraceptive. And in so doing, we were able to reduce the funding level we were allocated from $6 million to $3 million. And I would yield the floor to the senator from Henrico, who understands the impact of this much more clearly than I do.
The senator from Henrico.
I think that this is a very good bipartisan effort on our part. We know that these long-acting reversible contraceptives can contribute significantly to reducing the abortion rate, and I think everybody in this body is interested in doing so. The method that was generally accepted that we think will be something that can work in a bicameral way is to use Nexplanon, which is the implant in the arm, because it suppresses ovulation and therefore is not an abortifacient. So I hope you'll support this amendment.
The senator from Arlington, Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak in opposition to the committee's amendment, although I do appreciate their effort to thread the needle. My concern here is it's basically interfering with a doctor's decision on what the appropriate LARC should be. And that's why I have a problem with it. I am loath to have politicians continue to get involved in these very personal decisions that a doctor and a patient should make. I appreciate the fact that what we would call the patch on the arm is perhaps a very good contraceptive approach, but it may not work for everybody, and the options are limited with this amendment. So that's why I ask the body to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Henrico.
Just to respond, this is not a patch. This is actually an implant in the arm that lasts for 3 years. And I think that certainly there are conversations that have to happen between patients and physicians. But taxpayers also have a little bit of a say in what we spend our tax dollars on. And there are, I think at least 50% of the population that's uncomfortable with spending that money on something that could be an abortifacient. So this is a good way to go.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Arlington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do appreciate those comments, but again, I don't think low-income women should be deprived of certain options that those women who can afford whatever LARC they may want or whatever other medical treatment they might want. So again, I understand the point. I want to advocate the fact that politicians should not be involved in these decisions, and we should not be limiting options for low-income women. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 295, number 1, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Moving forward to page 73. Item 306, number 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the amendment pass and speak to that.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This particular amendment speaks to the prohibition on overtime funding for personal care attendants. This is a policy that we implemented this past year, the first year of the biennial budget, and the governor basically put money in there to provide overtime payments. The committee amendment reverses that, and basically here's where it puts us. The committee restores the prohibition, and so that limiting the hours that these personal care attendants can work to 40 hours per week, generating savings of roughly $8.5 million in general fund, and also an $8.5 million in non-general fund as well. What has happened, Mr. President, in response to the prohibition, The number of live-in attendants that we see out here practicing now has increased from 5,913 in May of 2016 to 8,285 in November in 2016. What does that mean, Mr. President? It means that 40% increase that we've seen in live-in attendance is an adjustment that individuals are making in order that appropriate services can be provided, because there is an exemption in place for live-in these care attendants. So I hope the body would support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 306, number 6, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Item 306, number 14, on page 77.
Mr. President, I move the amendment pass and speak to that.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Item 306, number 14, on page 77, is the Senate Finance Committee's response to the JLARC report on Medicaid reforms. You'll recognize, if you were following in the press, that there were a number of recommendations that were made this past year by JLARC after they had completed a 2-year study that had been commissioned by the General Assembly. As a result of that, your committee, the Health and Human Services Committee of Finance, waded through those recommendations, working with DMAS, and we picked out a series of recommendations that we felt were appropriate to discuss in conference. The other end of the hall, Mr. President, you'll find that the findings, or at least the interpretation of those findings by the other body, were much more harsh. And I certainly disagreed at that time, and I continue to disagree, because for the most part, Mr. President, I would submit to this body that we have a very well-managed Medicaid program here in the Commonwealth. There are some recommendations that I think we can mutually agree that would be helpful, that are best practices, and can help us ensure that we're delivering appropriate services to our citizens at the lowest possible costs. And this that you find in this amendment is where we are with the Senate Finance Committee, but I would be pleased to respond to anyone who may have any specific concerns about these. Otherwise, I would hope we would support the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 306, number 14, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. On page 79, item 306, number 15. The senator from Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the amendments pass and speak to that.
The senator has the floor.
As we look at this, Mr. President, I'm sure we're all kind of familiar with this. We've had long conversations about this particular subject over an extended period of time. The governor chose this year, even as the backdrop in Washington would indicate that there are perhaps going to be significant changes made in the Affordable Care Act, and obviously there is an extreme effort up there, or an intense effort, I guess I should say, to basically repeal it. I'm one who would like to see them work on it a little bit and amend and fix it, but there is a possibility that it will be repealed. As much as I thought that we should, while it was in place, access those federal dollars, we must recognize where we're at in this debate, and even the governor in his zeal to take the last shot at it right now to say, okay, if they come up with something that he would go ahead and get us in there, and he wouldn't be prohibited from the General Assembly having to authorize and fund it, that he would like to just authority to go ahead and do it. This language basically takes that out, says no. We'll have that conversation on another day, and the General Assembly will continue to have input into it. So that is what the amendment does, and I hope the body supports it.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 306, number 15, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me. Those opposed, no. The chair is uncertain. There's going to be a recorded vote. All in favor of item 306, number 15, will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 24, noes 15.
Ayes 24, noes 15. The item is agreed to. Moving forward to page 100.
It's his call, not mine.
Item 365, number 4, on page 100. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee recommends, I move that the amendment be agreed to. The committee recommends language to clarify that the existing $1 deed recordation fee applies to all instruments properly filed in each jurisdiction where the Virginia Outdoor Foundation holds an easement. Currently, some localities are sending in as little as $1 a year, while others are paying as it was originally intended to do. The primary objective of the amendment language is to improve overall application of the fee to the appropriate instruments by standardizing the applicable instruments to match other similar fees.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 365, number 4, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Page 116.
Mr. President.
The senator from Eastern Fairfax County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side by which we adopted item number 306, 15S on page 79, I'd move that we reconsider that vote so that we can get the right vote recorded. We just did it.
Did we voice or record it the first time?
(306) 15S.
The question is, shall the vote by which item 306, number 15, was approved or be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, would you share with me what the rule is as it pertains to the chair being in doubt on a verbal vote?
I'm sorry, your question, what is the rule when I'm in doubt?
Exactly.
I call for a vote, a recorded vote.
Mr. President, further inquiry.
Yes, sir.
When it is abundantly clear that there is a significant minority that verbally is voting against an amendment and there is an overwhelming verbal response for those that support it, how does Mr. President make that determination objectively as the presiding officer whether or not to put people on the board?
Sir, when I can't determine, and I couldn't in that particular case, I called for a recorded vote.
Mr. President, I know you're a pediatric neurologist, but I have a good friend that's an audiologist, sir.
The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Even though today's the governor's birthday, I don't want to do him this big a favor, so I still move the amendment passed.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item number 306, number 15, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The chair is uncertain. There will be a recorded vote. All in favor of agreeing to the item will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 21, noes 19.
Ayes 21, noes 19. The item is agreed to. That's good. Moving forward to page 116. Item 442, number 4.
Mr. President.
The senior senator from Virginia Beach.
Mr. President, what item 442 4S does is really equalize. It recognizes the fees associated with the registration and just bringing the fees for re-registration on a par with the fees of registration, recognizing it takes significantly more work to do a re-registration than it does to issue the initial registration.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 442, number 4, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Page 119. Item Page 119, item 453, number 3. The senior senator from Virginia Beach, Senator Wagner.
Yes, Mr. President. What this item does is basically on any major contract that goes out under VDOT that the PLA cannot be used in the scoring either against or for a PLA. It doesn't certainly prohibit any bidder from bidding on it using a PLA or not using a PLA. That's all the amendment does, just makes it clear. And I move the amendment pass.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Eastern Fairfax County, Senator Surville.
Speaking to the amendment, Mr. President.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate why this is in there, but it's really not necessary. PLAs have proven to be a good tool to be used. They ensure the local labor is used. They improve training and safety standards. They're often actually necessary in highly complex projects. And where we've made a policy decision that we're going to start using these P3s to fund mega projects all over the state, these need to be part of the scoring process. And I just think we need to leave this up to whoever's negotiating these P3s to be making this decision, and instead of us legislating to them that they're not allowed to consider it. I'd ask that we reject the amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 453, number 3, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. Page 124. Item 475, number 5. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Mr. President, that particular amendment, and I hope everybody will support it, is the one that provides all the detail for the 3% across the board increase for state employees' paychecks. So I would move the amendment pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item...
Mr. President.
Yes, the senator
Gentleman yield for a question.
Would the senator yield for a question?
Be pleased to yield, Mr. President.
He yields, Senator.
And this is a friendly question, but I would simply ask the gentleman, it's a 3% pay raise except for faculty, you only get 2%. Why do faculty only get 2%?
Mr. President, I would say to the gentleman that as we examine this with limited resources, we basically wanted to restore ourselves to the position that we were in last year, or rather last spring, when we adopted this, and that was basically the action we took at that time. Many of the colleges and universities were able, from their own resources, to go ahead with the increases. Some didn't, and so we felt it was a collective judgment of the committee as we were focusing on classified state employees, but still wanted to do something for the universities, to peg that number at 2%. It was an affordable number.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 475, number 5, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. On page 134, item 478.30, number 1. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I certainly would call the attention to this particular amendment to all the members of the Senate, particularly as we position ourselves to basically defend our budget, hopefully as we pass it here and as we deal with the body down the hall. We were pretty aggressive within our subcommittees in terms of keeping ourselves positioned to save money where we could so that we could address our priorities. In doing that, we also had staff looking on areas where we could basically produce some additional resources without a new economic analysis. We didn't intend to re-benchmark based on the fact that we might have had a good January or anything like that. We wanted to basically live within the means that had been established. But one of the bills, the amnesty bill, which the senator from James City County is carrying, we had one of our staff members working on that with spreadsheets for probably at least 3 weeks, making assumptions and looking at the assumptions the administration had made. And we determined with a pretty significant comfort level that that amnesty bill would yield an additional $31 million. In addition, as we had pared back our spending, we had accumulated some additional money that we didn't want to go to the unappropriated balance at the bottom line. So we came up with the concept, which I think is an excellent one, that we would put aside a reserve account with no strings attached. At this point, we're not getting first call on it at this time. That will help us in conference. We may have to give up some of it over there, maybe not. The ideal would be that it's a buffer for us, separate and apart from our rainy day fund, which we know has restrictions based on Constitution and statutory authorities. But this will allow us basically a comfort zone so that we can continue throughout this year, even if we have a slight downturn, to be able to fund what our priorities were. Is that's delivering on those state employee salary increases, the 2% for colleges and universities, the 2% for local state-supported, and certainly the significant re-benchmarking of the effort for our state police and our efforts to significantly improve our mental health delivery system. Those are our priorities. This money is set aside if we need it, and hopefully we won't need it. Hopefully the economy will continue to improve, but I think it's a good conservative way for us to set aside some money as a buffer for contingencies for the future. And with that, I hope the amendment will pass, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, rising in support of this budget amendment, I think the senator from Augusta made a very articulate presentation on it, and it is a fiscally responsible and conservative approach. But there is another component of it. Virginia has been vigilant in maintaining its AAA bond rating, which in fact represents a significant saving of taxpayer dollars if we can retain that AAA rating. And every year, the 3 rating agencies do an examination of Virginia and its budgetary process. And one of the concerns that they have expressed is the repeated reliance on the rainy day fund. So, yes, we would continue to have access to the rainy day fund in accordance with the constitutional provisions, but also this does give us something of another cushion depending upon the vagaries of the economy in the next year.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall item 478.30, number 1, be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The item is agreed to. That's all of the amendments that were, or items that were taken out of the block. There are 3. The senator from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we could return to item 442, number 8S on 117, I would respectfully ask that that be passed by for the day, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, item 442, number 8 will be passed by for the day. We have 3 floor amendments. The junior senator from Loudoun County, Senator Wexton.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been a very long afternoon, and rather than require this body to endure what we who actually spend a lot of time in these courts would call a slow plea, I would withdraw that floor amendment at this time.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, that amendment will be withdrawn. The senator from Spotsylvania, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 floor amendments that kind of go in tandem. I don't know if you want to take them separately or you want to combine them.
your call, Senator. If you want to combine them, that's fine. If we
Mr.
could.
President, I have two floor amendments, one dealing with item number 97, number 1S, and item number 295, number 3S. Mr. President, I move that the reading of the amendments be waived.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the reading of the floor amendments be waived? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The reading of the floor amendment is waived.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment be agreed to. And speaking to that,
Senator has the floor.
ladies and gentlemen, this was in the governor's proposed budget, and I just wish to speak to a little bit about our restaurants and what they're faced with now with the increase of this fee going from $40 to $285. Just a little bit of information. There's about 17,000 restaurants in the Commonwealth, 10,000 more in food service locations in schools and hospitals and hotels and such. And our restaurant industry brings in about $16.3 billion in sales in 2016 with almost 363,500 jobs in the Commonwealth. What I find odd about this is if you calculate what the $40 fee was, it's about $680,000 to the Commonwealth. When you tack on this $285 fee, you're looking at a revenue for the Commonwealth of $4,845,000. That's a difference of $4,165,000 in one industry to make up a difference in some of this shortfall. Mr. President, I just don't think that's reasonable, prudent, or even fair to have a seven-fold increase on an industry that provides so much to the Commonwealth. And I would make the motion to move to pass these amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Mecklenburg, Senator Ruff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would recommend that we do not pass this. And I would say that none of us were enamored with the idea of the governor's proposal. However, we tried to address the members' amendments as best we could with but the cost of this is $5 million, and it's needed to take that money would have to deal with the raise issues and all of that. As we go through the process with the House, I hope that we can come up with some graduated program that won't be one or two categories, but will be several different categories, because this includes supermarkets, which may run from, in the Richmond area, from $11 million to $33 million a store. It also deals with mom and pop restaurants and convenience stores. So there ought to be some differences, but we did not have the time or the money to deal with it at this time.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I want to associate myself with the remarks of the senator from Spotsylvania. I think it was very important that the senator from Mecklenburg pointed out this is not just at restaurants. It's not just at high-end restaurants. This often is at very small mom-and-pop shops, and the same ones that often get hit by those meals taxes that the good people of Fairfax County sought to reject this year. And I hope that if we're not able to prevail on this amendment today, I wish our conferees all the best. In the event that the House comes out with a different budget in that conference, I hope that they will prevail upon them to address this significantly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Augusta, Senator Hanger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speak to the amendment, floor amendment.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I have some level of sympathy and support for the floor amendment that's sponsored by the senator from Spotsylvania, but here's where we are with this. As he indicated, the amount of money that would be raised by this is also the amount of general fund dollars that we will leave on the table here if we actually accept this floor amendment. So I have to speak in opposition to it. The merit that's there is, of course, that as the senator from Mecklenburg expressed, that what is proposed here is not a graduated scale that the governor proposed, and I would prefer that we do something like that. But the history is we've had the $40 fee for quite some time now. If we look at, and there's another very significant issue, and that is public safety in our food supply, and certainly that is a critical public safety issue as we look at the health concerns there. We currently require an inspection, and the costs of these inspections is $16 to $17 million per year. that are conducted by our health department. So in this area, while we don't like tax increases, we're all somewhat supportive of, well, if you cause the cost to be expended, a user fee is appropriate. And this is a very appropriate user fee. Again, we're spending $16 to $17 million per year. The current fee raises less than $1 million per year. So it's obvious that some adjustment should be made in terms of a user fee adjustment here. I would hope that we would defeat the floor amendments, but the suggestions that have been talked about as far as a graduated scale may be appropriate. Even if we implement the $285, that will only take care of roughly 25 to 30% of the total cost of providing this service to the restaurants of the Commonwealth. So I would hope that we would reject the floor amendment.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the floor amendments be agreed to? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The noes have it. The floor amendments are rejected. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Madam Clerk, does that complete all of the Senate amendments and the floor amendments that we need to address on Senate Bill 900?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. President, I respectfully move that the rules of the Senate be suspended and that the constitutional reading of the title be waived and that we place Senate Bill 950 on its final passage.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the rules be suspended and the third constitutional reading be dispensed with? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would respectfully move that Senate Bill 900 pass, and I would say, Mr. President, that I think we've had a very earnest and spirited dialogue on it, but considering the limitation of resources, that we have met the priorities of the Senate as a whole, and I would ask everyone to please support the budget amendments.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Franklin County, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I intend to vote in favor of the Senate Bill 900, but I must state that I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item 249, number 1, due to its 1S. So that's item 249, number 1S. Due to its funding implications for New College Institute.
Thank you, Senator. The journal will so reflect. The senator from Stafford, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, look forward to supporting the budget, but pursuant to Rule 36, I would ask the journal reflect that I'm abstaining on item C-25, number 1.
Thank you, Senator. The journal will so reflect that. The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am also abstaining pursuant to Rule 36 on item number 3-1.01, number 10S, but voting on Senate Bill 900 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. The journal will so reflect that. The senator from Portsmouth, Senator Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am abstaining pursuant to Rule 36, item number 306, 10S, but vote on Senate Bill 900 as a whole.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall Senate Bill 900 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill is agreed to. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I would like to thank the entire body on their support of Senate Bill 900. And as I said previously, I think it does represent a collaborative effort. And sometimes, as we know in the practice of law, unlike the practice of medicine, when everyone's not happy, generally you've done something pretty good. But, Mr. President, I would appreciate it if all the members of the Senate would please join me in extending our heartfelt appreciation for the Senate finance staff that has worked so incredibly hard and works very hard to make mediocre senators like myself look pretty good. So if you would please join me on that.
The senator from James City County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does that mercifully conclude today's calendar?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other business for the Senate?
Yes.
The senator from Hanover, Senator McDougal.
Mr. President, rise for purposes of a couple announcements. I think
The senator has the floor.
Clerk is going to repeat this. Mr. President, the good news is that we're after crossover and we've now finished the first leg of the budget. The bad news is we have a lot of House bills. So with that, Mr. President, on your calendar, you will see that the Committee for Rehab and Social Services is set for 8:30 tomorrow morning. That committee is actually going to meet at 8 tomorrow morning. So you lose 30 minutes, and then the Committee on Rules is going to meet at 9. So we're trying to work through as many of the House bills as we can at this juncture because next week will prove to be extremely busy in the Senate. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side in which we passed Senate Bill 1476, I ask that vote be reconsidered.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the vote by which House Bill 1476 passed be reconsidered? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 39, noes 0.
Ayes 39, noes 0. The motion is agreed to. The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. Mr. President, I respectfully move that the bill pass.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall House Bill 1476 pass? All in favor of the motion will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Do any senators desire to change their votes? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 40, noes 0.
Ayes 40, noes 0. The bill passes. Is there any other business to come before the Senate? The clerk will please report any announcements on the desk.
Today, Thursday, February 9th, the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources will not meet. Agriculture will not meet. The Education and Health Subcommittee on Public Education will not meet today. It has been rescheduled for Monday, February 13th, 9 a.m., third floor East Conference Room. This is a change. Monday, February 13th, 9 a.m., third floor East Conference Room. The Virginia Legislative Black Caucus will meet at 5 p.m. in the 6th floor Senate Leadership Conference Room. Tomorrow, Friday, February 10th, the Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services will meet at 8 a.m. in Senate Room B. The Committee on Rules will meet at 9 a.m. in Senate Room A. The Republican Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session, Senate Room 2. The Democratic Caucus will meet 1/2 hour before session in Senate Room 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The senator from Bedford, Senator Newman.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until 10:30 tomorrow.
Thank you, Senator. The question is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow morning? All in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned until 10:30 a.m. tomorrow.